Welcome everyone to Three in the Keystone, episode 34. I have Al Ryan and Chris Guest with me. Guys, my adrenaline is pumping. Was just at the Chestnut Hill Griffins quarterfinal game. Big 65-60 win over Dominican, going to the Final Four for the second time in school history. And I don't know what's going to come out of my mouth tonight, guys. It's chaotic.
I thought you got this out of your system in the little chat we just had before you hit record.
I'm probably going to finish this
snip
podcast at probably 11 o'clock and then go rewatch the game on my sofa.
Shout out to the AD at Chestnut Hill, Jesse, for a friend of the podcast. Previous
or guest, no pun intended.
Yeah.
It's always hard to use the word guest around you.
Well, hey, what do you want me?
What's this on? Where can we find this on television?
CACC network.
Oh, okay.
You can download the app, or you can just go on the
just go on Chestnut Hill's website.
League website.
Yeah.
You can just follow the watch link. It's on there.
I would say I just went to Chestnut Hill's basketball website, and then when you click on the game, it gives you literally an audio icon or a video icon, and you just click the video, and then in like 2 seconds, I was in the game.
Rumor has it they have more viewers than Live Golf's debut this past weekend.
Well, I know you tuned in for Live probably. Well, you didn't have it, you said, right?
I couldn't.
I was in on it.
I watched it a little bit.
I was knee deep in the Live the Mexico. I forget where they were at.
Mayakoba.
Yeah, Mike. Yeah,
Charles Howell.
Yeah, I got to download the app.
Not to be confused with the millionaire from Gilligan's Island, Howell.
Mr. Howell.
Mr. Howell.
Cookie 3 sticks. But
shout out to the guy too, by the way, Seltzer. I don't know if you know who he is, but on the Chestnut Hills game broadcast, the broadcaster was pretty good.
He's very good. The color guy,
or is he with the conference?
I mean, he does all the Chestnut Hill games, so I think he's like from the conference, but he just does the Chestnut Hill games.
Okay,
like they've upped their, like, compared to what it was 10 years ago. They actually had like a mini red zone channel tonight on the CACC network where it was like bouncing between all the playoff games.
Oh, really?
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah, the guy, he did a good job.
Yeah, the color guy's just average, but the play-by-play guy's good.
I wish he had a colored guy.
Gotta be careful. But that place was jumping tonight. That place.
Yeah, it was. It seems pretty intense. I'm happy for him. It was
yeah, me too. But let's get into the big stuff tonight. 3 segments coming at you. We're going to go back to our standard format as we kind of veered off the last couple of weeks, and we're going to start off in segment 1 with our Philadelphia sports recap. Gentlemen, the Philadelphia 76ers have come out of the All-Star break. They are 1-2. They've beat at a great win against Memphis. Obviously, the heartbreaking loss against the Boston Celtics, and then last night's dud against the Miami Heat. I'll tell you what, I've watched this team for so long that you had to know that dud was coming. There's just, this team is not mentally or just into the regular season enough to bring it 3 straight games. Like, it was lying in the weeds that this was going to be a disaster game.
Yeah, I agree, Adam. And I know you're probably going to get here at some point with the conversation, but I was pleasantly surprised with the fight that they showed in the fourth quarter of that game, because that to me was a game where we've seen it a million times. They just roll over and die in the fourth quarter, and they end up losing that game by double digits, and it's just on to the next one. So I was a little pleasantly surprised, even though the outcome obviously wasn't what we wanted.
But the problem is, Al, you're right to an extent, but they've done this now for the last 3 games, and it's actually pissing me off because it's time to be a team that sets a tone in the game. And this team is always so reactionary. Like, they were down 17 to the Grizzlies, fought back, came back, won the game. They were up 15 against Boston. Boston comes back, takes an 11-point lead, and then in the fourth quarter, we come back again to tie it, and then Tatum breaks their heart in the last couple seconds. But, like, it's getting to the point where it's so you just said it. It's so noticeably –
it's predictable.
It's a noticeable issue that they're so uninspired when they're playing right now.
Yeah.
And to me, that's 2 things. That's leadership and that's coaching.
In that order.
Yes.
Yes.
This has got to stop. And I don't know if it's Embiid. I don't know if it's Harden. I don't know if it's Tobias. I don't know if it's a combination of all of them. but this team is clearly uninspired right now. As the season goes on every year, they get uninspired. And as much as I'm an Embiid guy, he is him and Tobias at least are the common denominators in that. So I don't know if it's strictly their fault. I don't know if it's just the atmosphere with the organization where they just don't emphasize the importance of these games when they should. I mean, the fan base knows these are big games. Miami is a team we've talked about for weeks that they get hot around this time of year, and they're going to do it again this year. And they're going to end up probably being a team that, in my estimation, right now is probably going to be the team we play in the first round.
Yeah, it's viable.
And that I'm torn on what I think about that, because a part of me, when I talk about the lack of inspiration, it scares me and the coaching issue scares me because obviously Spoelstra's a great coach and he would coach circles around Rivers. But also the fact that on the other side of it, I'm like, well, the Heat shot 40-something% from three last night, which was way better than they've averaged all year. They probably won't be that hot again. But at the same time, it comes back around to we struggle guarding that 3-point shot. We've done it all year. We struggle with that. So I don't really know what to think of a series with Miami right now. I don't think it's clear cut that we're going to definitely lose or definitely win. I think it's very much down the middle with that series if it was to play out that way, but it shouldn't be. That's what scares me. We should be clearly a better team than them, and I can't say that right now. I
don't think Miami has enough offense in a series to beat us 4 out of 7. But again, it comes down to the mental edge, and they beat us last year in the playoffs, and then they beat us again. So they have no fear of playing the Sixers. I can promise you that, especially the way that they're built. And the only thing I wanted to comment, and I'm going to try and come off as anti-Embiid as I can tonight, because Embiid has been fantastic. But you mentioned the leadership, Chris. I can't have this guy, again, just continue to use the line after the games. Well, it all starts with me when it comes to the attitude. He says it every time the team doesn't bring it. Like, you just need to start bringing it and stop talking about it.
Well, that's how I feel about Rivers, though, when he has the press conference and he says, we just didn't have any energy tonight. We just didn't have whose fault? That's part of your job as a coach, is to be a motivator at any level. And you're just consistently not doing that. Listen, and I have a big problem with it.
I have a lot of things to bash Doc on. We're not Doc people, but I think the energy for games, it has to come from the players. Like, that has to come from those guys. Doc Rivers, what's he going to go up to James Harden and say, I really need you to play hard tonight? You think that's going to move James Harden's needle?
No, not necessarily in that specific situation, but planting the seed with that team throughout the week, throughout the couple days that they have before those games in practice or whatever the meetings they have, this is a game we got to get. This is a big one. This is a game to show not just ourselves and our fan base, but the league. Like, we're nothing to mess with. We're not a fraud.
These are men.
Boston game.
These are veterans. These are grown ass men. They don't need another grown ass man to tell them to get up and play the game. And if they do, they shouldn't be playing. They're never going to win a title if they do. Here's who I think has to be part of that spark plug too. Number one, it rests on Joel Embiid, but number two, and we've hamstrung him, it's Tyrese Maxey, because he's the guy on the court that he plays with that electrifying kind of attitude and pace that a James Harden doesn't, that a Joel Embiid doesn't. But as we've seen, him coming off the bench it's not working out. And his numbers in the last dozen or so games coming off the bench,
since he's been back,
abysmal. What's that?
Since he's been back from his injury, he hasn't been good.
Oh, 100. But if you just in a window and just shrink it down to that last 12 or 13 games, I mean, he's average at best.
So I think that'll transition to how we were going to plan this segment tonight. I have a bunch of observations I've made specifically about the last 3 games, but it also can stem back depending on what we talk about. And I just want to discuss some of these topics with you guys. And the first, I wanted to start with the positives, but since we're talking Tyrese Maxey, let's go negatives first. Tyrese Maxey needs to get going. Since he's been back from his injuries, 35.7% from 3. His points per game by month this year, 23.3 in November, 22.4 in December, 18.9 in January, and 15.8 in February. So it's been a steady decline, especially since becoming the 6-man role. I think coming down the stretch, the most important thing is this guy's got to find his jump shot. If he can't be our third option in the playoffs, this team is not going anywhere.
Yeah, all of his. I mean, he was at one point in the season, he was the top guy as far as corner threes. I mean, that's no longer the case. He's shooting it way below what he was shooting it last season. I don't know what it is for him. I mean, in my opinion, can we get him some easier looks? Like, to me, it seems like whenever he's driving the lane, getting to the basket, these layups are a 10 on the degree of difficulty. He's missing layups, but these are hard layups. Can we set some screens for this guy? Can we get some backdoor cuts, like get some easy buckets for him?
Well, I think that comes with, again, last night he played well, actually. He played
really
well
well.
last night.
Last night was the first time in a long time.
But in the third quarter last night, I was actually down at the game last night. He came in, he usually comes in now about the 5-minute mark, give or take, in the first quarter and the third quarter. They put him in about the 8-minute mark, and he actually got to play with Joel and Harden, and that got him going.
Yeah.
Like, I think moving him into the starting lineup where he can get some of those looks, and I have, again, later on my list, we can talk about it. But I think he needs to move back into that lineup so he can get some better looks instead of throwing him out there with the all bench unit where he's forced to create himself and with really not a lot of other offensive options out there.
Well, that kind of goes back to my point too with the coaching. Like, another guy that hasn't been able to get it going for a while now is DeAnthony Melton in that lineup.
PJ Tucker Jr.
Huh?
PJ Tucker Jr.
Yeah.
Little PJ.
I like Melton a lot, but he's had the opposite issue where he's been put into the starting lineup and has struggled. And that's an example for me of, and I hate to keep talking about this, but that's just where I'm at with it. You talk about inspiring grown men to play. When you're in the behind closed doors moments with these organizations and you're a coach, that's those instances where you have to say, yo, if you're not going to get it done, you're not going to be on the court. And that's the leadership I'm talking about with grown men. Because guess what? Especially guys like him, they're not max guys by any means. They are very replaceable. And if you're not going to be able to produce, you can't play those minutes. You can't play in that lineup. Maxey's been producing as best as he can, for instance, last night. Now, if he can string those kind of games together in a row and still not be able to get put in the starting lineup, and Melton is still doing what he's doing right now, which is not a whole lot of anything, don't you think mentally that makes Maxey kind of say, like, okay, well, I'm playing my ass off and it doesn't matter. I'm still in this role. This role's not for me. It's not helping the team. We're not winning. Boom. All of a sudden, inspiration's gone.
Right.
That's where the coach in the NBA comes in.
Well, I have two things to counteract what you're saying, because I hear you. But first of all, Maxey has not shown that he's strung those games together yet. He's having a one game here, one game there. And second of all, they have a 2-game losing streak, but they were like 18-4 in the 22 before that. And that's what Doc's kind of point was. He's like, why am I going to shake this up when we're winning? So now let's see. I agree with you, Chris. If Tyrese gets going and we start losing games, that's the time to make the move.
Well, and we also know that this is the make or break. This is the meat and potatoes of the schedule right now.
Yeah. Right. It doesn't get easier.
And no, it's the hardest schedule left in the league. And they've lost 2 games. Luckily, they didn't lose 3 games out of the All-Star break against 3 big-time playoff teams. And for me, that's unnerving. I know that they lost the last 2 by a combined, 5 points.
Right.
But
all 3 of those games could have gone any which way.
But it didn't. And for me, it always doesn't with this team. It always is where when it matters the most, it feels like this team finds a way to be on the short end of the stick all the time. Yeah. And that's the frustrating, exhausting part of this organization right now. As much as we love them, that's the part that I hate the most.
And Chris, you were saying it, and I'm sick of Doc saying that, because yeah, we racked up a bunch of wins and we had a couple good wins. I'm not going to sit here and say we didn't, but to sit here and compare the wins against Detroit, Utah, Brooklyn, San Antonio, Orlando, those are wins that we should be winning regardless. These last 3 games, if we are truly a championship contending basketball team, which is now what we should be, year 6, year 7 post-process, you have to beat Boston at home. You have to beat Miami at home. Like, you have to do it. This is the litmus test. The litmus test is not what do you do against Detroit in January, okay? There's 22 games left. Doc needs to turn things around. It is obvious that Tyrese Maxey is not the same player coming off the bench. Not every guy has that mentality. And I've said it before, we've changed his role so many times in just 3 seasons. We are taking this kid out of his comfort zone and we're forcing him to do things that he's not comfortable doing. Not everyone is a Lou Williams. Like we need to put him back into the starting lineup, into a role that he's comfortable with. Let the kid do what he's been doing for the past 2 seasons, and let's get something figured out before playoff time because it's going to be here before we know it.
So great transition to my next. I have it as a negative, but we can talk about both sides of it. We talked the Boston game and having to win that game. To me, the difference between us and Boston in that game was the bench.
Yeah.
The starters jumped us out to a lead. Then in the beginning of the second quarter, we blew the lead. Third quarter, we come out and we jump out to another lead. And then Boston comes back early fourth and swings the table when the bench comes in. And then our starters get us back into the game. I'm looking at the forward position. And Chris, you've been on this since the get-go. Al, we've been a little bullish on Niang, but we've always said, like, he's out of place. Listen, he's out of place as the first forward off the bench. We've said that the entire time. He's the second forward you need off the bench. And if he's not making shots, he's not worth a damn, especially in the playoffs. And secondly, Jalen McDaniels is not ready for this.
No. I think he is defensively, but he's not offensively, I don't think.
I watched him last night and I watched him against Memphis. That dude, when he gets screened, he just runs into the screen and he's just nowhere to be found. He has no idea. He just runs around like a chicken with his head cut off. You watch him specifically, go back and watch the last play against Memphis when he's guarding Desmond Bane. He gets screened, gets lost. Bane gets a wide open look for 3. He tries to contest, and then he starts backpedaling towards half court. Meanwhile, the rebound hits the back rim, bounces right back to Desmond Bane. Just watch him when he gets screened. He gets blown up all over the place.
Yeah, but I mean, the previous guy that was here, was he much different with the screens? I mean, chasing guys. I found myself watching Thibault all the time behind, being able to see numbers on the back of jerseys and trying to catch up and block from behind, and then he fouls. So running through screens, getting called for fouls. It's not like it's like something that we had and then we gave up and now this guy can't do it. We haven't been able to get consistent defense from that wing position really for forever since Thibauld's rookie year.
Right. And I mean, the only difference, I agree with you. Like, I don't think Thibault was the answer in the playoff situation anyway. But my only thought is, like, Jalen McDaniel has never played in a big game, ever. At least Thibault has had minutes.
He has been. I will reach out and say he has been a little disappointing so far. I can't really say he's done anything that Thibault wouldn't have done. He's not been that much better at anything specifically. In fact, Thibault's been playing pretty good in Portland. But I think he's also more comfortable. That's where he's like that area where he was from.
Different, totally different, totally different.
Games mean nothing.
Yeah, and I wish him the best, whatever. But it's just frustrating, man, because I feel like we're like and I could be wrong because you said this before, Seltzer, how we watch a team with laser focus being our home team, our favorite team, and we see all the flaws.
Yep.
And you could watch the Lakers or you could watch the Nuggets or whoever else, Boston. And every night, I told you when I was at the game the other night on Saturday, and the fans was like, if Tatum could just handle the ball, I'm like, bro, what is that? Like, I'll take him and we can figure it out.
That's a perfect example of what you're saying. It's perfect example.
It's so frustrating because in that game, we had them. Tatum did nothing all game. He had 14, 15 point, whatever, 13 points. He was not a huge factor in that game at all offensively. And then at the end, he does what he does. He lays a dagger in us. And it's just frustrating because we're always right there. And then it's just, again, always on the short end of the stick somehow. Even last night, Harden gets a look. You could argue Embiid should have went strong into the cup.
No, that was the right play.
I think that the play was fine. Harden's, it's a good shot. It's in the cup, comes out.
It's a good shot. And Jimmy Butler makes a miraculous layup.
Yeah.
But here's the difference again between Boston and Philly. Ready? Boston's got their 5 starters: Marcus Smart, Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, Al Horford, Robert Williams, Malcolm Brogdon, Derek White, Grant Williams. That's 8 playoff ready players. How many players in the Sixers roster right now can you trust in a playoff series? 6, 5.5?
I don't know. Yeah, 6 is generous.
I mean, well, that's why I said before, if you don't think that Kevin Love is more valuable and would be more of an asset for us than George Niang is,
Yeah,
I don't know what to tell you.
But he wasn't going to come here because like Miami starting him. He wasn't going to start here.
Well, I think the issue who knows what the conversation consisted of with the Sixers with him. But for me, if he's got to know, first of all, the fact that he even entertained the team and had the meeting in general shows he was interested, legitimately interested. You got to think the Sixers, with all that being said, have a better chance to go further than the Heat this year.
Right.
Right.
All right. So for me, do you want to start on a team that's going to probably be out in the first or second round, or do you want to be a main 6th, 7th guy on the bench for a championship caliber team? If that was the case, I feel like he would have came here. I don't think they put that in his plate.
Well, everyone's different too, Chris. I mean, if they're telling him, hey, you're going to start, you're going to get 20 minutes a night. He's a guy. I don't know what do you guys know what his contract situation is? Maybe he's a guy who's like, I could put something together here, potentially get one more contract, get one more big payday before my career's over.
So when he gets bought out, he gets his salary from Cleveland minus what he gets from Miami. But I do know Miami could offer more money than the Sixers could. So I don't know what he ended up signing for, but I think Miami could have offered up to $3 million, and the Sixers only had it was under $1 million to offer.
Well, plus you also have the no Florida tax also,
right, and the fact that he's living in Miami.
But it's also like he's won a ring. He's been there, done that. Like he's not the kind of guy that's going to go to a team and be like, hey, let me be that veteran presence, that guy in the locker room that is going to rally the troops and be what we need Doc Rivers to be. Like maybe that's not his personality. Like maybe seriously, I mean,
I don't know.
34 years old, like.
Yeah, Al, but I don't know if I buy that. This is the same guy, though, that sat there on Cleveland's bench and got basically put out of the rotation for and was demanding a trade at first. And then when they started winning, he kind of fell back and was like, all right, whatever you need me to do. These guys are good dudes. We're winning games. I'll eat it. Yeah. I'm fine with that. And he's still staying in Cleveland of all places. All right. So like he was okay with doing that. So I don't know.
I'm with you.
You could be right.
I know nothing about Kevin Love. I'm just trying.
No, me neither.
Because you're right on the optics. It's like, why wouldn't you go to Philadelphia over Miami? But he did. Now, and that just real quick, just to go real quick back to Jalen McDaniels. That's where, to me, it's a failure by the organization because they bring in a kid who's a kid. They needed a veteran, man. They needed somebody who's been through the war that can come off the bench, like almost like what the mindset was of bringing PJ Tucker in, because you're asking this McDaniels kid to come in with 25 games left and be a spark plug off the bench and be this defensive magician and do all these things. He's not. I mean, that's asking a lot of a 30-year player who's never been in that situation.
Right.
I was saying he's young, and he's also been on bad teams.
Yeah, right. Absolutely. I mean, coming out of college, I think it was like he's a project. Like that was like his scouting report, you know?
Right. Yeah, he's got I think a lot of GMs still and scouts think he has a legit ceiling as far as not like a star, but as far as a guy that can really contribute to a winning team. And I think the Sixers are willing to buy low on that because he's only making like $1.8 million this year, and I think he's a free agent after this year.
Right.
So they were willing to buy low and see what happens if they can get lightning in a bottle. Get this kid for a couple of years because who knows what the future holds as far as the money is concerned with this team going forward after the season. So if they can get a guy that's cheap, that's productive, they figure maybe they
and he has the two things you can't coach: height and length.
Right, physically, he's what they needed.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly. Here's a criticism of mine, and the Boston and the Memphis game, and even the Cleveland game before that, Tobias Harris showed some signs of life. He was 10 of 18 for his 10 for his last 18 from 3. Made a couple big shots against Memphis.
He's huge in Memphis.
Yeah. And he played good against Boston as well. But I think early in games, they need to do, and when I say they, it's Doc, it's Harden, and it's Embiid. They need to do more things to get Melton and Harris involved in the offense, or Tyrese Maxey if he's starting. They need to get those guys looks early to get them going. Tobias Harris took 4 shots last night. That's not acceptable. 4 shots in a basketball game. And they don't – when we are going, it's a lot of yo-yo between James Harden and Joel Embiid. It really is.
I'm glad you said that. That was my next point was I feel like the Sixers are, again, watching them all the time on Laser Focus. Other teams may have this too, but it feels like the Sixers are a team where if you contain Embiid and you stop Harden, you're going to beat the Sixers because they don't play good team ball at all.
Right.
So if you can contain those two, you have I would probably venture to guess a 90% chance to beat this team. And it's frustrating because like you can't win like that long term. Like you can't that's not sustainable in today's NBA. You have to be able to have stars on your team, but at the same time, you got to be able to have those stars get others involved and to be able to get them to maximize those role players' roles.
Yeah.
And we don't really do that.
I was going to say we've seen it we've talked about it. Joel Embiid come crunch time, especially come playoff time, and we're not going to get into that argument, I promise. But when teams throw the doubles his way and he kicks it back out to Harden, you are relying too much on just one other guy. You can't put all this on Harden's shoulders. He can't be the distributor, the shooter, the guy that's going to bail us out. No, he can't. You have to. Adam's right. It's got to be. In my opinion, it is Tyrese Maxey. It has to be Tyrese Maxey in that position. But if it's not, yes, you have to be able to rely on a Tobias Harris or a DeAnthony Melton to be able to create, to be able to knock down a shot. But they simply don't. They don't have a big enough part in the offense.
And to be fair, you have guys like PJ Tucker, and I have a note about him that we'll talk about him later. PJ Tucker is completely fine with playing defense and getting 4 shots a game. Yep. Tobias Harris, I'm sure he's like, screw this. Like, this is not fun for me. This is not my role.
Again, and all of a sudden, motivation.
What'd you say?
I said, again, it goes back to motivation and coaching.
But get him more involved. It's not fair to him that, let's kick it to Tobias in the corner in the fourth quarter when he's taking 4 shots all night. And if he misses it, we're going to boo him. Like, you got to get into a rhythm offensively.
Right.
And it's hard for these guys he needs to be getting 12 to 15 shots a night. That's a fair and reasonable number for him to be getting. Again, if this,
and they don't have to be jump shots. They could they could be in the paint. They could be driving to the off a screen, driving to the basket, whatever.
It has to be a threat.
Yeah, 100%.
And same with Tyrese.
That goes back to the coaching aspect. Get him involved, draw up more plays, more whatever you got to do to get other guys involved. And that's not even just Tobias. That's also Melton. Melton desperately has to get going offensively.
I said Melton. Yeah, I said Melton too.
He's got to get going offensively. Bench guys like Niang, Shake even right now. Like, these guys we got to get them going. And the knock on Rivers has always been lack of adjustments. Every city he's been, every fan base has said the same thing. And we've seen it ourselves now. It's like he gets locked in. Here's what we're doing. Very hard-headed, stubborn dude. And if it works, it does. If it doesn't, it's someone else's fault.
Well, yeah, and Maxey being on the bench, the roles are all jumbled. Like, I feel like Shake Milton's lost.
I mean, can you blame him though? Like, what? Like, where do they want to?
No, I don't blame him.
Right.
This is Doc. Like, this is a lineup issue. This is a substitution issue. Like, this is getting the right guys on the floor together.
Right. 2 more notes I just want to go through. These are actually, I have both as positive notes. PJ Tucker's alive.
Dude, 16 boards Saturday night.
Yeah.
And even like defensively, he looked active. He's starting to make the corner threes.
Yeah.
He's shown some signs that like he could be valuable in the playoffs. This is the guy that we expected.
I get the impression that he's like the old Chevy that you got in the garage all winter long, and then like you start it up just to get it going, at like towards March. And then springtime comes around and you're taking him out for a spin. That's what I get the impression PJ Tucker. I mean, I feel like he played this exactly the way he knew he was going to.
Oh, it's 65. Let me put the car out with the top down.
Yep.
Absolutely. And the only other observation I have, and this again is positive, and I don't mean to, Tobias Harris has not played well, but I feel like I'm blowing him up because Tobias has made a concerted effort to be better on the defensive end. If at the end of the Memphis game, he's guarding John Morant on that last possession of the game. I've seen him guard Darius Garland, Donovan Mitchell down the stretch. If he continues to commit to being a good defensive player, that 5 of Harden, Melton, Harris, Tucker, Embiid, that can be elite defensively. And we've seen that in fourth quarters. You saw it last night. I think Miami had 17 points in the fourth quarter. Something along those lines. Like, those 5 guys, you have 4 really good defensive players, and James Harden, who realistically, I don't want to say he's not a good defensive player, but physically he's not, he's not 6 foot getting pushed around. He's got the body to at least hold serve against the 5th person on the other team.
And again, that's why for me, it's been so frustrating because like Miami only scored 101 last night. Jimmy had a good night. He was a assist short of a triple double, but Hero only had 8 points on 3 of 13.
Yeah.
Saturday night, Tatum only had, I think, 13 or 15 points, and then had that big 3 at the end of to win the game. Thursday, Ja only had 15 points. Like, it's like we're doing better, I think, than some people realize defensively, but then we're also only scoring like 99 points last night. What was it? 107, I think, Saturday. Which in today's NBA isn't
107 is not great.
very beatable. So it's like the offense has to start clicking. The defense has not been that bad. It really hasn't. It's the offense has got to get going, and that comes with drawing up plays. I don't know how their coaching staff is set up as far as like who's in charge of offense, if there's anybody that's in charge of offense versus defense or whatever, like it is in football or whatever. But some teams do have that in the NBA, some don't. But somebody's got to get something clicking.
Well, against Miami too, they only had 73 shot attempts on the evening. I mean, compare that with the other night against Memphis, they had 84.
Yeah,
they turned the ball over a lot against Miami. So
yeah, which is not like them.
It was a slop game.
Yeah, they've been good protecting the basketball all year, but I think they had 20 turnovers last night.
18
turnovers last night. So I have in my notes here my 3 priorities for the rest of the season, and you guys let me know if you have anything else you want to prioritize. Number 1, first and foremost, is health.
Yeah,
we only have 6 guys that we can go into the playoffs with. If somebody gets hurt, we're in like I think we're pretty much locked into the 3 seed unless we collapse. With our schedule, I don't see us catching Milwaukee or Boston. And I think we're 3 up in the loss column on Cleveland, maybe 4 up in the loss column on Cleveland.
I'm not worried about Cleveland. I'm worried about the Knicks and Miami.
Yeah, the matchup.
I think we're far enough ahead that we should.
I do too, but I'm just saying if we implode, that's who I think would overtake it, not Cleveland.
But at the end of the day, if we're not healthy, it doesn't matter. And that's all of our guys at this point.
Well, and Joel said as much that he's not healthy right now. I don't know what that means.
There's no player in the league that tells you that they're not healthy like Joel Embiid.
Well, but he's not. He's
okay,
obviously
but he played the All-Star game, so I have no sympathy. I'm over it. Like, don't play the All-Star game then.
Well, I agree with that too. I agree with that.
My second priority, obviously, we talked about it. Find Tyrese Maxey's groove. Another thing, if Tyrese doesn't find his game by the playoffs, we're not going anywhere.
Now, does that mean a first round exit?
If depending on the draw, I mean, I can't tell you.
So if we play, you said with Miami, you said that you think that they don't have enough firepower to beat us in a 7-game series and the Sixers are at home for that series. So what about like a team like the Knicks?
If Tyrese is not playing well, then I think we could lose to any of those teams. I'm counting on Tyrese to get back to his form and hopefully be back in the starting lineup by then.
The Knicks are tough, man. They're starting to really hit my radar. At first they weren't, and I thought it was a cute little story and all, but now they're starting to get on my radar a little bit.
Josh Hart brought something to that team, man.
Yeah. I like the guys they got, man. Yeah. They got dogs.
They play hard. They do.
Yeah. They got dogs for Tibbs, man. That's what he's always needed. They got some.
And here's my last thing is realistically, I think we need to start playing Jalen McDaniels 18 to 20 minutes a night. Got to try and see if he can be a guy that can help you in the playoffs. And the only way to find out is by throwing him in these games. Him playing 10 minutes last night doesn't do him any good. It doesn't do us any good. He needs to play with these guys, and because we need another forward. And we know that George Niang, if he's not making shots, cannot play in the playoffs. So remember James Ennis in 2018, 2019? That's all I'm picturing. Like, I need a guy like that who can give me 12 minutes in the playoffs. But in order to get there, I need him to play 20 minutes now to get into a groove.
Yeah, I mean, we know what Niang is.
Right.
Like, it's not like this is a couple games, I think, especially against really good opponents. Like you said, see what he's got. And if you'll know quickly. We'll know. I know Rivers will know. But you'll know quickly if you got something or not. And if you don't, then it is what it is. Put Niang out there. Also, real quick, this Dedmon thing is starting to piss me off. Not that he was going to be a world changer, but you went out and you have other options that you could have signed You sign this guy, and he's not even able to play.
Yeah.
Like, what was the point?
He blows anyway.
There's no, but I mean, you wasted money and time. This guy's got a hip problem. Why even sign him?
I don't know. I don't know.
The organization, man. This organization is a mess.
So
It's a disaster.
stupid.
It's a disaster. Chris, you had the tweet of the night last night.
I don't even remember what I said. I was so freaking hot.
I forgot. I don't even remember what it was either, but it was something about
That's how good it was. We don't remember what it was.
Go check Twitter, guys.
It was something about like load management for players, and he said like, where can you get load management for fans or something?
Oh yeah, about Embiid opting out or
yeah.
asking out, and I was like, yeah, where can the fans ask out?
Yeah, that's the truth. But listen, I mean, at the end of the day, we're still third in the East. They've still had a very good season. If any of those 2 games flips, we're probably having a different tone story. But listen, the rest of the week at Miami Wednesday, and then a back-to-back at Dallas at Milwaukee. So nothing. It doesn't get much easier for this group, and we'll see what they have moving forward.
And the city's, I mean, Thursday night was that fourth quarter was the loudest regular season I've heard them in probably 6-7 years. That was a really great crowd Thursday night. Saturday night was great too, but we didn't end up on top. But it's like, I feel like this fan base for years now has been like a shaken up soda bottle waiting to explode. And we just keep the cap on it we always find a way to just keep the cap on it. And it's just so annoying and frustrating.
I don't know if there's been a team that has such a predictable second round exit coming in Philadelphia since, I mean, when was the last time? We know it's coming. It's coming.
Yeah.
I don't know how else to explain it other than I just have like an intuitive feeling that we're just somehow, some way we're going to get out of that second round this year. I don't know what it is. I just see it clearly, and I don't know. We'll see. I'm probably wrong, but we'll see how it goes.
I
just got a feeling something's going to happen.
I want to apologize to the listeners for my picks last week in the NBA part of the podcast. Picking the Sixers to get to the conference finals was wrong. And my pick of Dallas, I don't know where my brain went when I said Dallas was going to win the West.
You pulled that out of your ass, dude. You
really did.
I was
literally on the show
about Dallas.
Yeah,
that was wild.
I'm taking that back off the record.
As a listener, you guys have to understand that sometimes when the lights are on and the record button is hit, you're sitting here and some things pop in your mind and you don't want to say them, but they just fly out of your mouth anyway.
I was scrolling the standings. To be fair, I don't like any of the teams in the West. And I was just scrolling down. And I saw Dallas, and I was like, "Ooh, Dallas!" That's what happened.
I told you when we talked about them. I don't like that fit. I just don't.
They have zero interior defense.
They gave a lot of that up. Finney Smith is a good defender, and
right.
He can help you on both sides of the ball. But I just didn't like it.
But
Golden State's just waiting in the bushes, man, to pounce. Golden
State reminds me so much of Brooklyn last year that like everybody's like, we don't want Golden State. They had a really rough regular season. They were shoddy, but they were like, gotta avoid them, and then they went and they got swept. It's just not their year. But
can we visit what I talked about a while back? Someone's scoring 100 guys within.
Well, I'm glad that you brought that up because I didn't know whether to bring it up now or in our third segment, but I wanted to ask you, what's going to happen first, a 100-point game or a 200-point team game? Because I was locked in on that Kings-Clippers game Friday night. That game was nuts. Malik Monk was out there looking like Kobe. He put up like 45. They had 3 guys, him, De'Aaron Fox, and Kawhi all had 40-plus points. It was nuts. It was Wild West out there in that game, and it was fun. But it got me thinking about, like, are we going to ever see a 200-point game? I think we're closer to seeing that than an individual 100-point game.
I agree with Chris.
No, I disagree. I think the 100-point game. Dame drop.
That's so hard.
What Dame drop? What did he drop? 74?
71.
71? He didn't score the first like 5 or 6 minutes of the second half.
He's still 30 short.
Dude, 30.
Joel Embiid leads the league in scoring at 31 a game. He still fell that much short.
Even 5 years ago, if I told you that we were going to have 2 70-point games in the same season, you'd be like, there's no way in hell.
I agree. The scoring's out of control.
Dude, we're breaking the door down. It's going to happen. Now, in my opinion, I'm not saying that this is going to be rigged, but it's going to be the right guy, the right place, the right time. Because whoever gets it is going to be the man. I mean, that's a number, right?
The man, they're going to be the man, any other.
It's going to be the man. So, like,
saying
again,
at that point,
I'm not saying it's rigged, but I think that the league is going to have a little bit of a hand in, like, hey, a guy's getting close. It's either we're going to get him there or we're not going to get him there. Like, either whistles are going to start to get blown and the guy's going to start to get to the free throw line, or they're going to go silent and the guy's not going to get to the free throw line. Because it can't just be some jobber. Like, it can't just be
obviously.
Rock Hard Rick that scores the 100 points.
Pork chop cash.
Like, it's got to be a guy like Dame.
That's a whole nother episode.
Dame was my pick when we talked about it. I said
Dame will be a good. I'm actually going back on my book pick because I don't think he's a guy that the NBA would want to, like, kind of go around. You know what I mean?
I'll tell you this: if you're right and it happens, it's a guy who's not in the league yet. It's somebody that's probably in 7th grade right now or somewhere in the world that's going to do it that we don't know yet. I don't think anybody in the league right now is going to do it.
It's going to happen too soon, though. It's going to happen sooner than that.
It'll happen at some point. It'll happen after someone had 200 points for a team, though.
That kid's going to be at his prom watching Wembanyama probably drop 100 on Chet Holmgren.
Those two guys, who knows? Maybe they're one of them. I don't know. I mean, technically, Chet's in the league, even though he hasn't played a game yet, but we'll see. But 200 points to me, like, we're definitely going to – did the All-Star game have a 200-point game yet?
I think so.
Yeah. They had to have.
So
that rookie game next year is going to be wild with Holmgren and Wembanyama on the same team.
Yeah, dude, there's going to be arms and legs everywhere. But in the attacking era that we're in, somebody's going to go out there and throw Adam Seltzer, Chris Guest, and Al Ryan on a starting lineup against, like, the champion team at that time. And I mean, we've already seen, like, this year, we've seen the second highest amount of points in a game ever, which was the other night in the Clippers-Kings game. We've seen the Nets get beat by 50 the other night. Like, I mean, we're getting close to some weird stuff with the team offenses too now. So that's why it made me think, like, 200.
I just think for the 200, you need, like, double, triple overtime.
And
right,
hey,
which is possible.
I was gonna say that's more practical and possible than a dude go. How many shots do you got? Like, you got to get up at least 40 shots to get a legitimate chance at 100 points.
It's the free throws though too, man. You got to get to the line because you got to stop the clock.
And make all of them.
You got to score with the clock stopped.
Yeah, man, it's
Kevin O'Connor's on your side, Al.
I know. Look, I'm sick of this. We need to start getting some credit for these predictions that we're making.
I know. But before we transfer to segment 2, we have to again, this is a Philly sports segment 1. I'll pass it to Chris and Al if you guys have any comments. I don't necessarily have too much. Eagles hire a new offensive coordinator and defensive coordinator this week. Brian Johnson gets promoted within. And the other guy, I don't have his name written down, from Seattle, the defensive coordinator. Do you guys have the name? Andy?
Sean Desai, I think it is.
Sean Desai, sounds right.
I don't know if I'm saying that right or not, but I'm not really. I'll be honest. I like Johnson. I told you there a while back that there's been in inner circles in the NFL, from what I've heard, like, the dude is a really big up and coming type talent from the coaching perspective around the league. So I'm not surprised at all by that. But Desai's defense, I think I saw last night there was some stats. I think at one point, like, their blitz percentages aren't not that you have to have a high blitz percentage, but it was in the bottom third of the league, which is what we've been used to at this point. But also, like, overall, their defense has not been ranked that high with him. Now, granted, he has a lot more talent on this team than he's ever had previously with Seattle. So we'll see what happens with that. But I don't know. I'm happy for the guy. Is this the first time that we've had 2 black coordinators on the same team at the same time?
The size of Indian descent.
Is he Indian? I don't know if he was biracial or what is.
He's a Temple guy, though.
Yeah, that's so. I'm happy for the guy. I just, I'm more confident in Johnson in that move than I am the defensive side.
Well, it's just nice having the consistency
Right.
on the offensive side. I mean, I think that's crucial for Hurts' development because he's still developing as good as he is. So I think that's crucial. Desai, I don't know. I'm not going to sit here and pretend I know anything about this guy, but look, Pete Carroll's a solid head coach. I feel like he probably learned a lot from him. I think he had a good year when he was defensive coordinator for the Bears a few years back. So I mean, look, time will tell, but I know nothing about him and his scheme, what he runs.
Yeah, so I feel the same boat. So, just did want to note that the Eagles did make those 2 hires this week. Obviously to replace Steichen and why am I
Jonathan
drawing a
Gannon.
blank? What is it?
Gannon.
Cannon.
And thank you. I was drawing a blank on Jonathan Gannon there.
Come on, man. We can't even forget these cats' names, bro. Come on.
Dude, it's been a long night for me. All right. My adrenaline's still pumping. But speaking of deaths, the old school baseball fan is rolling around in their graves right now, watching some of these spring training games. So we're going to jump into segment 2, where we're going to discuss the rule changes in baseball. And we're also going to have a little fun and make up our own rule changes that we would like to see in sports. So stay tuned for segment 2. Welcome back to segment 2, where we're going to talk the rule changes for the upcoming MLB season, and it's certainly going to be a different product for you guys out there. For those of you who aren't aware, I'll run through the changes really quickly. Most importantly is this new pitch clock that has everybody in a tizzy. So here are the basic rules. A batter has 30 seconds between hitters to get into the box. So you're going to see a quicker from batter out to batter in the box, a 30-second clock. From that point, if there's nobody on base, the pitcher will have 15 seconds to deliver the pitch to the hitter, and it'll go up to 20 seconds when there's runners on base. The punishment, if you do not fail to hit this, will be an automatic ball. However, there will also be an automatic strike if the batter is not prepared to hit with 8 seconds left on the clock. So there is both players are a little bit sped up in this process. The last part about the pitch clock is you have 2 step-offs or throw-overs to first base, and then you cannot throw over again. So these are all changes to be put in to speed up the game. Since spring training has started, and again, spring training games are not necessarily the same as regular season games, I believe the average time per game is about 2 hours and 33 minutes, which is a
Sign me up.
huge.
Love
What'd you
it.
say?
Love
Sign
it.
me up.
Yeah, listen, it's going to feel a little bit rushed initially, but I think at the end of the day, players will adjust, and listen, when those 7 o'clock games are ending at 9:45, that's just going to be fantastic for all of us.
Beautiful.
I saw the
better than-
first, I think it was the maybe Tigers Yankees, maybe the first game of the preseason, and it was 2 hours, 16 minutes. Like
Yeah.
I played MLB The Show games longer than that. Like,
The only problem is, like, again, for us living in the suburbs, Chris, if we want to go down to a game, if you're a little late and you're in the second inning, you may only be at the ballpark for an hour and 40 minutes. It is what it is, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I heard somebody on the radio said, I can't remember who it was, I'd credit them, but they said watching the games now are like when you listen to a podcast on 1.25x speed.
Yeah.
I thought that was a really good comparison because the couple spring training games I've watched for the Phillies, I mean, it's batter after batter. I mean, and I love it. Today I watched the 4th inning of the Phillies Blue Jays game, and it was a big hit parade for the Phillies, and it was just guy after guy, boom, 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 boom. Like there was no wait.
And I disagree, Seltzer. I don't think it, from watching it, I actually did the same thing. I caught that inning on the replay a little bit ago. But I also watched this weekend live, and they don't feel rushed to me. I don't feel
No.
rushed watching.
No,
I haven't
not-
watched any of it live.
Yeah, I didn't feel rushed at all. I don't know how to. I mean, you're gonna have some players, especially pitchers, who are just d-bags, and they're literally just gonna take the full time on principle. We've already seen that with like for instance, Bilotti was doing it the other night for the Phillies, and he basically said like, "Yeah, I'm gonna use every second of that 15
And
seconds."
that's fine. 15 seconds is fine.
He also was in the top 5 last year of time in between pitches. He averaged like 26 seconds in between pitch, like 26 seconds from one pitch to the next. Like,
That's probably with nobody on base.
and you expect, yeah, it's a relief pitcher, absolutely. And you expect people to get behind the sport and be excited. Like 26, that's half a minute in between 2 pitches.
Yeah.
Ridiculous.
You know, this was like when you play the video game and you skip the cutscenes. You just get right to
Yeah,
the
yeah.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
what this is like. According to SI.com, they said that the average game time for a baseball game hasn't been below 2 hours and 45 minutes since 1985.
Right.
In 1985, there was a ball in play every 2 minutes 55 seconds. Last season, it was 3 minutes 49 seconds.
It's a huge difference.
That's like a whole. I can listen to a whole song in between a ball being in play. That's wild, man.
Yeah. That's crazy.
And I saw something too where like in 1977, the average time of a game was like 2 hours, 41 minutes. And then in 2022, it was like 3 hours and 18 minutes or something like that. That 40-minute gap tells you, like you said, when you're traveling, if you have kids, you have a family, you go to game, like you go to a 7 o'clock game during the week, getting out of there at 9:30 versus 10:10 is a huge difference.
Yeah,
Huge difference.
absolutely.
The only thing I'll miss, and I'm only going to miss it one day a week, is the Sunday afternoon game. Sometimes the idle chatter of like the announcers when they have time to fill and they're talking about nothing on a beautiful Sunday afternoon. Like that's enjoyable to me, but it's still not worth be what we're trading off during the week. So I'll be fine without it. But like you think about like Vin Scully, right? And how good of a broadcaster he was, and how, I mean, rest in peace.
Yeah. If only we had a Vince Scully. Instead, we're stuck with Tom McCarthy. I've never been a fan of Tom McCarthy.
Oh God.
So the less Tom McCarthy,
Tom is all right. Get
Yeah,
off
he's
my man.
whatever.
Never
Yeah,
mind.
I don't hate it. Listen, he's better than what the Sixers got. We're gonna keep going back to the past the Sixers.
yeah. Dedicate a whole segment.
You're here.
Do you have any concerns about, let's say, like pitchers' velocity fatiguing a little quicker during the course of the game?
No, and guess what? If it happens, it happens. We need more offense in this game. So yeah, go ahead. Fatigue, feel rushed, throw a meatball,
And it's going to be it's going to lead to evolution of the sport because you're going to get guys who are going to start to be conditioned for those 15 seconds.
Yep, 100%.
It's going to take time, but I think it's for the best. And again, people are so quick to be traditionalist and not want to adjust to any rules. I remember when the NFL wanted to move the extra point back and people were losing their mind. And now everybody's used to it. It's fine. There's no problem.
And it's paid dividends.
It's better. Right.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, we have to be able to adapt.
As a society, our attention span is crap anymore. It's like 5 seconds or something like that. It's like our attention span these days. I mean, you have to adapt or die. And baseball's been dying, man. So put the pitch clock out there, and hopefully the PGA Tour will put a shot clock out there themselves.
And we mentioned the total average time per game being well over 3 hours last year. I wish I would have looked it up. What do anybody have the playoff numbers? Because the playoff games go even longer than that.
Probably, I would say probably.
It was 3 hours and 3 minutes last year in the regular season. I don't know the playoff numbers.
So Sarah and I were actually at the Phillies Pirates game a few years ago that broke the record for like the longest. It was like 4 hours and 58 minutes or whatever. So it was.
And it was 9 innings.
Right. And it was, I think it was like 17-4 or something like that. The Phillies just got that ass all night. Right. And so going obviously from Philly to Pittsburgh in itself is what, a 5-hour car ride.
At best, 5 hours.
Nah, 4.5.
Boy, you know, I mean, I was going like,
well,
so I had to get there fast, but once we get there and we're watching it, and like you get to a point where not only is it a blowout, but somehow the game is going longer in a blowout. You'd think it'd be the opposite. Like the teams would just kind of concede a little bit, like, all right, it's on our night. Let's just get this quick and get out of here. It didn't play out like that. It was the 7th inning. It was like 10:40 for a 7 o'clock game. 7th inning. And we were like, we got to go. Like, and it was a mass exodus out by this when we left in the 7th inning. It was ridiculous.
Could you imagine ever going to a movie and they're like, hey, this movie's going to be 5 hours long?
Right.
You never go.
Nobody would go. That's why I'm amazed when people go to, like, not that we'll ever talk about this, but when people go to NASCAR races, those races are a long ass time.
Yeah.
And I know there's a lot of things, other things to do there. And a lot of those folks are just piss drunk anyway, as it is. But any event, like you go there and it's like a festival, like any kind of specific sporting event, and you go for that long and you knew it was that long in the beginning, you're probably not gonna go. I mean, even if it was Eagles Cowboys and you were like, yeah, it's gonna be, 4-hour game, you might think twice about going. So I'll catch him next year. You know what I mean? Like,
how funny is the game that just happened where the ump called the third strike because the guy didn't get into the box?
But it won't happen again. It won't happen again,
great.
Guys.
Dude, that's great. And I guarantee these umps were probably told heading into spring training, like, hey, if time comes and you got to call the game on this, do it.
Especially in spring training.
Especially, absolutely. I loved it. I thought it was hilarious. Bases loaded, full count.
Bases loaded and whatnot.
Great.
Because, like, if you don't set a precedent, they're going to take advantage. They're going to think it's like the NHL playoffs. Like in hockey playoffs, the refs just swallow the whistle in the third period and just let you do whatever you want. You can't have that in this. You can't be like, well, we're going to set this rule in place and then not honor it in the
Right.
playoff game or a
Right.
World Series or a regular season.
Oh,
It is what it is, and you guys got to
playoff-
adjust to
Imagine
it.
a playoff game ending like that. Oh.
It'll happen to us. Castellanos will take too long to get in.
Castellanos.
His chain will be sticking out of his shirt. He'll go to tuck it in and lose the game.
It'll be interesting to see what happens with stolen bases as well, with pitchers only being able to throw over twice.
Well, let me ask you, because I what I don't get is, well, and somebody, I forget who it was, mentioned their comment on it was baseball fans shouldn't have to watch all their players get out their OCD regimens.
Right.
And that's really what it comes out to, because like a lot of that stuff that takes 20, 30 seconds in between is BS, flipping over gloves and doing the
Nomar would be cooked.
Yeah.
all that kind of stupid. But I don't get the base thing. Making bases bigger, it's still 90 feet. Making the bases bigger, is it supposed to like allow for more stolen bases, or like what is the
No, it was a
More
safety
that.
thing to
Safety?
avoid more collisions.
Yeah.
okay?
That's more so. And actually the it's a little shorter than 90 feet now between first and second and third because the size of the bases. It's like it was like 4 inches shorter.
So if it's safety, why is Trey Turner out there with Aunt Jemima gloves on?
Oh my god, dude.
Every
The bits.
time he's
Well,
on
that's
base?
good. He's doing that for his hands, so he slides into the base. They're trying to make like
That's
take
what I'm
out
saying. If it's a
slides.
safety thing, wouldn't that be more safe to not have to worry about the gloves and just slide the outside of the base?
Well, yeah. Well, I think the guy should always slide feet first. I don't know why they're obsessed with sliding head. But he's worried about jamming a finger into the base.
I mean, it's always
two
been
different. Two
Yeah.
different. RIP walk-up music.
Yeah, a good point.
Yeah. They're
I didn't think of-
get it all
I
off
didn't think of
anymore.
that.
That's a
Yeah.
great point. We didn't touch on before we jump into our fun segment where we talk about rule changes. The shift as well. So you can only
good
put
riddance.
2 players on each side of the base. That's
Good.
going to help the Phillies.
I hated the shift.
The
I'll
shift
tell you,
sucks.
you know who the shift screwed maybe more than anybody in the history of baseball?
Ryan Howard.
Ryan Howard.
Yeah.
Ryan Howard would have probably bat 300 if he
There's a
could.
couple other like big lefties, like Jason Giambi was the same way.
Yeah.
Yeah, we would have had to listen to a lot less dopes that would always say, "Why doesn't Howard just bunt it down the third base line when he comes up?"
Yeah.
I mean,
I'm glad they got rid of the shift, but I would have done it differently. I would have said you still can put however many infielders wherever you want, but they all have to be in the dirt. Like for me, the issue was the guy who's playing in short right field and is fielding a ground ball in 30 feet out into the grass and throwing a guy out. If you hit a ball hard enough that it gets through the infield, it should get through the infield. That's the way I would have done it.
did they
but-
say anything about if, especially in like a playoff game, sometime you'll see it. Did they say if you're allowed to have 5 infielders for a play?
Yes, you can.
So you're still able to do that
Yes.
in the 2 outfield. Okay.
Yeah, you
Okay.
just have 2 outfielders, correct. But you cannot have 4 outfielders. You have to have 4 players in the dirt, 2 on each side of the base.
Okay.
So it'll be
Wait,
interesting.
real
to
quick.
see.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead. I'm listening.
I was gonna say real quick before we move on to our rule changes. Did you guys see the game where the umpires left early?
No.
No.
The Pirates and the Orioles. The
But
umpires.
that would happen in that game. I
Yeah,
wouldn't
right.
understand.
They're just showing them that we don't give a shit about them. The umps left after the top of the ninth. They just left. The commentary was like, "I guess they have restaurant reservations." No, they played the bottom of the ninth, and they were just calling their own balls and strikes.
Really? When was that today?
Today, total embarrassment.
Yo, preseason baseball is wild. It's
They
hilarious.
do whatever they want.
I
Yeah.
love that. I love that.
Yeah, that's awesome. I gotta look that up.
All right, but let's jump into some changes in any sport of rule changes that we would like to see. I have 2 that I have 1 that should just be if I would love to get Roger Goodell on the phone because it should be in the sport regardless. But let's throw it to Al first. Give us you want to go conventional? Let's go conventional first.
Okay, and I was gonna say if you have football, right? I'll start. Do you want to start with football?
Sure, I'll go first then.
Okay.
So for me, Chris, I'm going to throw a hypothetical at you, and I want you to think about it. Eagles are playing the Cowboys. Cowboys have the ball on their own 5-yard line. Okay, it's 1st and 10. Prescott drops back to pass. Tyron Smith, he's still the tackle there, right? I don't know.
For right now.
Whatever. An offensive lineman gets called for holding. It's not in the end zone. What happens in football right now?
If he gets called for holding not in the end zone, it's just a regular penalty.
Right, it's on his own 5. It's on his own 5-yard line. So how's he get penalized?
Oh, half the distance.
You have to, yeah.
Right. So it's a 2.5 yard penalty, right?
Right.
The Cowboys go back to the 2.5 yard line. It's 1st and 12.
Are you going to say inside the 5 is a safety?
No,
Lost
that's
it down.
that's reckless. The defense has the option of the holding penalty occurs. The ball stays at the 5 yard line. So the ball does not move, but the first down marker goes 10 yards back. So it'll be 1st and 20. And to get to a first down, they have to get to the 25 yard line. So they are penalized 10 yards in actual reality, just like they should somewhere else on the field.
It makes too much sense.
It makes a ton of sense.
It makes too much sense.
Yeah, I mean, because what are we really doing with the 2.5 years? Like
Nothing.
at that point, you don't really have an urgency to not commit the penalty.
Correct. And for all the penalties that are half the distance to the goal, the defense should have the option of moving the first down marker back.
I never thought of that. I always thought it should have been like a intentional grounding. It should just be a loss of down if it's within the 5.
That's not.
I like the rule about if it's in the end zone, it's a safety. But if it's within the 5 to the goal line, I always thought it should just be a loss of down by default.
I don't hate that.
I don't have a problem with your.
Because in any other place on the field, it's 1st and 20. So why are we giving them a break because they're on inside their 5 or their 10 or their 15 yard line?
And then at the 10 yard line, it would be you get pushed back to. First of all, I hate the half the distance anyway. Just if it's a 10, if you're at the 10 and it's a 10-yard penalty, put them at the goal line. That's
Right.
on them. They shouldn't have got the penalty.
I agree with that too. But so yeah, if it happens on the 10 yard line, so instead of being 1st and 10, the first down marker would move to the 30. They got to get to the 30 for a first down.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I dig that.
I mean, very easy and simple.
For me, I want to try to make the game a little more exciting. And so I would actually, if I was in the NFL, I would adopt a rule that college does. And in the last 2 minutes of halftime in the fourth quarter, I would just have it be first down, stop the clock, just to give a team a chance to make a comeback. Pretty simple stuff. Because it's an offensive minded game. We're showcasing quarterbacks. We're showcasing offenses. There's no secret there. So give these guys a chance to actually get down the field in 20 seconds with no timeouts. Now it's a whole different ball game if you can get a first down, stop the clock versus 20 seconds with no timeouts. You're kind of hamstrung. You can't really do much.
It just devalues timeouts. So that if I'm doing that, I gotta maybe say you only get maybe you only get 3 timeouts for the game.
Kyle Shanahan doesn't use them anyway, so it wouldn't matter to a guy like him. But
3 timeouts for the game would be wild.
I don't know if I agree with that, Seltzer, because there's still college games that timeouts are still very much in the play and have to still be considered a premium. So
yeah, but the difference is in the NFL, these quarterbacks can get to the line of scrimmage and call a play in like 10 seconds. And in college, they're like looking to the sideline. They need the play call. They don't have the ability to run an offense like these NFL quarterbacks. Peyton Manning could get the Colts or the Broncos up to the line in 3 seconds and have a play call. It doesn't happen like that in college.
True.
But it's the most exciting moment in a football game. The team is down 3, team's down 4. They got to go the length of the field. I just think it adds a little bit more. I mean, you want to see Patrick Mahomes. You want to see Jalen Hurts. You want to see all these guys with Trevor Lawrence, Chris's boy, with the ball in their hands trying to make something happen and give them that chance. It's the same thing. It's the same reason why we changed the overtime rules, to give these guys a chance.
I don't hate it.
Well, speaking of the overtime rules, I never understood why every year in the NFL we're sitting here. How can we make it fair for both teams in the overtime when if only it's always a big song and dance about some team getting screwed in an overtime period. When the whole time under our nose, college football has had a great system.
Oh, I hate that.
25-yard line. You start off there, you get 4 down, or you get for the NFL, make it 4 downs. So eliminate the first downs. 25-yard line, 4 plays to score. You don't score, other team gets a chance to score other end of the field. Or even keep it the same end of the field, because you don't need to have the fields flipped at that point. That way, both teams have the ball at least once. They have to score from the same spot. And if it's a field goal, they have a chance. The next team has a chance to still win the game with a touchdown. So that's not any different. It eliminates a lot of the issues that we've always had and get rid of time. College doesn't have a timer anymore at that point in the overtime periods. You don't need a clock. You got 4 plays, bro. Just take it to the street. 4 plays, Can you score? Can you not score? Period.
I'd hate to
Both
have the
teams get it.
I'd hate to have the under in one of those games.
Well, I mean, hey,
We're going against somebody in fantasy football.
but yeah, but I think that would help a lot. I think that it makes it fair. It makes it even. Both teams are going to get the ball at least one time. They're all professionals, so they should be able to. It's not like you're putting any team in a situation where they have a disservice of, skill set dudes that can or can't play in those situations. Everybody's got personnel for it. Make it happen. The Eagles are already trying to fulfill what we said before with the onside kick thing. You saw that, right?
From Rex Sports. That's a Rex Sports.
Yeah,
Rex
they're
Sports.
already trying to do that. Apparently, for whatever, and the XFL does it now too, and it's worked.
Yeah.
They're also trying to bring back the number 0. Do you see that?
No, I didn't even know.
No.
Yeah, the Eagles put in to allow for number 0 to be worn again. It hasn't been worn since the 70s. I don't know if there's someone on the team that's been like, "Hey Jeff, I need that 0, dog." I don't know why they did that, but that they put in for it.
It better be someone good.
Yeah, I'm sure it is.
So is that your thing? Your overtime? That's your
For football. I got
Okay.
I got
All right.
a baseball one too.
So I'll throw it back to me, and I have one for all sports. This is where we're going a little wild and off the cuff here. This is not a conventional. This is a little on chain. Let's get rid of the trade deadline. Why do we have trade deadlines? Why can't the Sixers make a trade today? Let's screw it. Like the end of the season, maybe not in the playoffs. You can't make a trade in the playoffs,
No, dude.
but let's just let them make a trades whenever they want. What do we care?
So what? We're gonna do the freaking playoffs and be like, "Hey, yo, let's get Durant for Game 5."
No, I see you can't do it in the playoffs.
All right,
Let's
but
just-
still, let's get Durant for
before.
the playoffs. Now, the last game 82, we're gonna get 3-star players.
Yeah, talking specifically about the NBA, these guys would be all over it. You kidding
They
me?
lick their chops.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's what, but I'm saying like a team would have to end up making the decision. You got to give up a shit ton, and then you're gonna just roll Kevin Durant out there in game 1 of the playoffs. He never played for your team.
Wait,
Good luck.
imagine the 8 seed going against the 1
Yeah.
seed, and the 1 seed's like the Lakers or the Heat or the Knicks, one of those teams that everybody always wants to go to. They're gonna be lining up to go. They're gonna stack the chips against all those guys.
Oh, see, I was thinking of it the other way around, Chris. Imagine us being Sixers fans. We lock up like the 1 seed or whatever, and then for some reason everybody just goes to Cleveland. Like they all the floodgates open, and LeBron, I'm going back to my home. I'm going back.
Yeah, but they gotta have something to
Win another
trade. They still
title.
gotta trade a ton,
Yeah, but I'm just saying,
and then they still gotta find it at the end of the season.
there'd be no. They would have no draft picks.
Yeah.
No, like we might have a draft where there's like 10 teams picking because everybody else trades their
What's the
picks.
difference? Like, why that could very easily happen in February? It's not any different. It's not gonna be any different in April.
You are setting me up perfectly for another point. You just did that with the last one. Al, do you want to take yours real
Well-
quick? Because mine goes right into that same logic with the trade stuff.
I just think it's like it'd be too easy for there to be collusion. Like I remember once upon a time when we played fantasy football together, and I traded a burnt CD for Rod Smith, and there was
Yeah, but that burnt CD was fire.
no,
I mean,
listen,
look, there would have to be some rules in place where you can't trade a player back or something along those lines. You had to put something. There's other like wrinkles you put into it, but the basis is you make a trade whenever you. I mean, remember baseball used to have the trade deadline, and then they had the waiver trade deadline, and basically you could just still make a
Yeah.
trade for another month.
yeah.
But there was just other tougher rules around it. It was
I
basically
might have traded a guy for a slice of pizza from Americo's or something in like '98 back in the day.
But look, that's off the cuff. That'll never happen. But that's my wild one because that would be.
Chris, if yours relates, go ahead. I have an NBA one also, but go ahead if yours
Well,
relates.
I was going to say, and it's been a couple of weeks since I've done this, the implementation of soccer. Transfer window. So it's the opposite. The transfer window, if all the sports did the transfer window. So you have 2 months, January and July, or whatever. That's for soccer, but you can pick whatever months you want for specific sports. All your transactions have to happen in those months. So when we talk about the NBA, for instance, with the free agency, how it's like hot in the very beginning, right? NFL, it's hot, but it can last a little bit long. Like certain sport, baseball lasts a long time, right? Free agency, you might have a guy that doesn't get signed until a week before spring training. Transfer window, you have to sign whoever you want in that month. So, as a fan and as an organization, if you have player X, Y, and Z on your radar, whether it be free agency or through a trade, you have to do that within that month. So, and you have 2 months throughout the year to do it. So you don't have to worry about like, oh man, is this the day we're going to trade Ben Simmons? Is this the day we're going to do that? Like if it's day 29 in that window, Jack, you got 48 hours that you're going to have to do something.
What's the
that's excitement.
What's the pro to this though? As someone who's not, I'm not up on soccer.
It's different. It depends on what angle what lens you're looking at it from. From a player perspective, it's peace of mind that you're only going to be vulnerable to be moved within that period of time. So like you're not like there's guys that, especially in the NBA with the trade deadline, and they always talk about how it could be a distraction. MLB, same thing. It could be a distraction as they lead towards it because you don't know if you're going to be leaving your teammates. You may like that clubhouse. Next thing you know, you're going to get traded. You're not going to get traded. Your family is like, where are we going to be going? That kind of stuff you're not going to worry about throughout the year. You're only going to worry about in that specific amount in that window. And from a fan perspective, like I said, you're always going to know all your excitement, draft. Soccer doesn't really have drafts, but as far as acquisitions via free agency or trades, it's all going to happen in a specific amount of time. So, like I said, if you're geared up for getting certain players and that window is shortening, something has to happen within that amount of time. Okay. So it's still going to add excitement to that off season. If it's in even if it could be even more exciting if it's in the season too, because they have it during, like one of them is in the season. One's out the season, one's in the season. So you still have the chance to do in-season moves like you would for a trade deadline. The difference is it's all free agency and it's all trades together.
It's an interesting concept. I'd have to get a little more familiar with it and get a little more comfortable with it, but I hear what you're saying.
So, and if you, like, for instance, if you have a team like, I'm just making an example up. Durant, if Durant got hurt and you are, in the middle of the pack, whatever the case may be, if you're not in the transfer window, you're burnt. Like you got a superstar player. He got hurt. What do you want me to do?
Right.
That's it. Like you can't just sit there and buy another guy or whatever unless they're in that window period.
Fair enough. All right, Al, what do you have for your last one?
All right. Well, this is dream world, but I'm going to fix the NBA. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to shrink the season. We're going to go from 82 to 70 games. There's way too many games in NBA season. Okay. That's going to relieve, the back-to-backs and the load management crap. The playoffs, we're going to change it. Long overdue. It's not going to be East and West. It's going to be top 16 seeds. And one plays 16 and so on down the line because we don't have the problem anymore of traveling. Every team has a private jet. There's no longer an issue with travel. So why shouldn't the top team in the league, in the playoffs, play the worst team in the playoffs? I don't see any reason for that not to happen in this day and age. Now, here's where I get a little bit crazy. The bottom 16, they also play in their own tournament. And I know you think where I'm going to go with this. It's going to be a little bit more different. It's going to be a World Cup style tournament. So you get the 4 brackets of 4 teams, and then one team comes out from each. And this not only will determine the draft order, it will also determine the winning team. So the 1, 2, 3, and 4, okay, they get a certain amount of money given to the players because obviously if you're like a veteran guy who might be fighting for a roster spot, what incentive is there for you to fight for a good draft pick? There really is none. So if you can give these guys a bonus of, X millions of dollars, those teams also, the 1, 2, and 3, so not the 4, but the 1, 2, and 3 finishers, they get no luxury tax for the next season. So it gives the owners a little bit more of an incentive on those teams to spend a little bit more money and not get the penalty back on them to try and make them a contender a little bit quicker. And the last part of this, we talked about last week fixing the All-Star game and fixing All-Star weekend. The bottom 3, the worst 3 finishing teams, and you got to figure out a way to do that. Maybe it's the worst 4 finishing teams. Adam Silver or whomever, maybe it's like LeBron or whatever, gets to pick from each of those teams. One team has to send someone to the dunk contest. One team has to send someone to the 3-point contest, and one team has to send 3 guys to the skills contest to try and reinvigorate All-Star Saturday night a little bit. So potentially, if you get and I'm just going to throw, if you get a Memphis that finishes in the bottom 3, Ja Morant's ass might be in the dunk contest regardless of if he gets 1 billion likes from his post or not.
I'll tell you what.
They're not going to be happy about that.
I don't give a shit what they're happy about.
It's creative. It's so creative and well thought out that I'm not even going to tell you that there's only 30 teams in the NBA instead of 32.
Imagine being in that conference. It's like, well, first off, bro, you got 30 teams. So that's one thing.
But listen, I dig the basis of it, the fundamentals.
Go back. Let me pitch that again. Timestamp that.
Too late now. But that was it. I had one other one. Two other ones that I'll quickly mention. We don't have to get into them. NFL, let's clean up the catch rule. If it's a catch, if it's not a catch, the ground calls it in the end zone. Let's clean that up. Hockey. Nobody talks hockey. I'm over points for overtime losses. You either won the game or you lost the game. We don't need points for OT losses anymore.
I'm over hockey.
I didn't even care.
Do you have any other ones you want to throw out there before we go into segment?
I wanted to somehow find a way to get relegation involved with basketball, but also I know it's hard because of the money involved in the NBA and things like that. But I want to make the NBA more global, and I don't know why the US is so anti-globalizing the NBA. Like basketball would be even better if it was globalized. And I think
what do you mean, like teams outside of like teams?
See, it's hard to explain because you have to really know like how the UEFA Champions League works. But like if you had teams that were like the top 4 teams from other worldly leagues all over the world play in a tournament in the off season. So like for instance, the teams that are playing in the NBA in the conference finals, in each conference finals would be the top 4 for the NBA. They would be in a tournament against the top 4 from EuroLeague, top 4 from Adriatic League, top 4 from whatever, and just have them play it out. And like obviously you're going to have a heavy favorite as an NBA team, but it's still going to expand the brand of basketball globally even more, I believe, than it already is. Because right now basketball, I don't have the figures, but I would imagine on popularity, basketball is probably the second most popular sport in the world behind soccer.
Yeah.
As far as at least team sports are concerned. So I just would love to see a way where the NBA got more globalized and also getting those guys from other leagues involved with dunk contests, 3-point contests, things like that. I think that would be kind of dope. And also, if you have a transfer window that also expands, if it's a global transfer window that expands opportunities to get guys from other teams around the world, not just within your league.
Soccer has captivized your brain.
It's awesome.
Yeah,
it's awesome. It's like when you buy a new game and you play it and you're like, you figure it all out. You're like, yo, this game is dope. Hours later, you'll be playing it the whole night. Like that's how I am with soccer. Like once you figured it out, you're like, oh, I'm nice with this. I got it. It's cool. It's a lot of good stuff that comes with it. But I got a question.
Ideas. I want to bring this back to the beginning before we wrap it up.
Right.
The conversation started about baseball and the rule changes in baseball. Right. I wanted to ask you guys this over the text, but I have it here, so I will. 2 one-word answer questions. Are you going to watch any of the World Baseball Classic? And B, if the answer is yes, would you watch any of it if the Phillies didn't go on their run last October?
So there's no B, so no.
No,
no B.
I have zero interest in the World Baseball Classic.
All right. There you have it.
So
I do want to ask real quick.
You would have interest in a global basketball.
Yeah, but it's different. I'm a hoop.
Okay, it's a sport. All right.
But with baseball related, question. I always wondered why all the stadiums don't just have a uniform dimension around their field.
I think it's unique. I think it's a cool part of baseball.
I think it makes unfair advantage and disadvantages.
Well, it depends on your team. Like your team changes over time.
I think uniformity with a field would actually be a welcome change, in my opinion.
I'm reading a book right now about the 1920s and specifically 1927s by Bill Bryson. And back then, did you know that the stadiums, the baseball field,
like 500 feet?
Yeah, and there was a field that had poles in the field.
Really?
Polo grounds, wasn't it?
Yeah, and as an outfielder, you had to make sure that you didn't run into a pole while trying to field a ball.
Remember Houston had that for a little while?
Insane.
But Chris, like the point is, like think about all the people who want to visit all the baseball stadiums throughout the country. It's because baseball stadiums are unique more so than any other.
Right, but they still would have that. It's not like all of a sudden
Like the
everybody's
Green
playing in the
Monster,
vet.
the Green Monster is like a huge deal. The short porch in right field of Yankee Stadium. Those are all
The monster's staying. You don't have to get rid of the monster. It's just in the same. It's 330 feet like anywhere else is. That's
yeah,
all.
but 330 feet over the monster is not the same as 330 feet over over Citizens Bank Park fence.
Right, but so if that's the case, then it's harder to hit a home run in that stadium still, despite the fact that the dimensions are the same everywhere. It still makes differentials.
What's the difference between like that and like a 345-foot fence then? If it's still,
I'm just thinking like fields like Fenway in right field, or Dodger Stadium in right field, or in Coors Field where the whole thing is huge. Like Giants, what's the Giants? Petco or not Petco? What's it
Pac
called?
Bell. It used to be Pac Bell. I don't know if it's still Pac Bell.
Like they're so specific that like they're so distinctly different. Like the San Francisco Stadium dimensions itself are worlds different than Cincinnati's park.
Right.
Like how is that? And it also influences personnel.
I think that makes it cool.
Yeah, this is the soccer BS coming out again because every pitch is the same.
But so let's wrap segment 2. Chris was motivated by last week's jobber versus golfer segment and has put together his own 90s player NBA. Would they be able to play in today's league? That's what you're going with this?
Yeah, that's
right.
That's it. Yeah.
So we're going to be right back with segment 3, Chris's game of NBA players. We'll be right back. Welcome back to segment 3. As I mentioned, Chris has prepared some names for us, some 90s NBA classic names, and we'll talk about whether or not they could translate in today's game. So let's pass it to Chris to get the ball rolling.
All right. So as you said previously, the segment last week with the golfers and the jobbers was definitely a hit. I wanted to try to piggyback off that a little bit with the sport that we all love a lot, which is basketball. So I thought of a list in tiers of players from when we were growing up in the 90s to see. Obviously the game is always evolving and changing, right? So to see if the players that were really good players back in the 90s would still be able to even compete, or maybe who knows, maybe you think that they'd be thriving in today's NBA more so than they did back in the 90s when they played. But just kind of a comparison to spark some barbershop talk with our old favorite players from yesteryear to see if they'd still be able to compete in today's NBA. So I broke it down into tiers, 3 tiers: really good players from the 90s, star players from the 90s, and legends that played in the 90s. And so all I'm going to do is put out a name, and you tell me if they would be able to thrive in the NBA today or not be a factor in today's NBA, and why. All right. So I'll start with the really good players. That's like the bottom tier. First guy, and it breaks my heart to say this, but Aaron McKee.
No chance.
Do you think that Aaron McKee would be able to be successful still in today's NBA? Now, he did have a pretty lengthy career. He played from 94 to 2006. You remember he was on the Lakers in 2006?
No.
He played 10 games for the Lakers in 2006 and played 14 for him in 2005.
2006? 2006, really?
2006, yeah. He played 10 games for the Lakers, 13.1 minutes a game, scored 2.2 points.
Aaron McKee, I'm looking at I pulled up his basketball reference.
Pride of Temple University.
Aaron McKee would be on an NBA roster, but he would not be a rotational player. Greatly improved his 3-point shooting as his career went on, but it looks like he was, kind of bounced around as high as, he did shoot almost 40% in 02, but generally in the mid to low 30s. Even at his peak in 01, 02, he was only a 12-point per game guy. Good defensive player, good teammate, didn't turn the ball over a ton, but he wasn't fast or athletic enough to be in today's NBA. So I think he's smart enough and a good enough guy to be on a roster, but I don't think he's a rotation guy.
I don't have him on a team at all. He was good defensively for the time, and we're going to probably say that a lot about these guys in this segment. But 6'5", 209 is what he's listed as, I guess, as his playing weight on Basketball Reference. But that was the heftiest 209 ever. If he was
Yeah,
listed at
he
209,
was slow.
so slow, and his
And his jump shot was
His
slow.
release, that's what I was gonna
His
say. His
release
release
is
was
just-
so slow.
oh my god! I mean, you can go make a cup of coffee, come back, and it's still in his hands. There's no
Yeah.
way he's finding his spot on a roster these days.
Al, I agree 100% with you because of his release I think is too slow for today's NBA. I think also his defensive style, he did a little hand checking and stuff like that here and there back then.
Yeah.
I think he got called for a lot more fouls now than he did back in those times. And also he was supposed to be like a 3-point shooter. Especially when we had him, he was all right, but he wasn't a world beater by any stretch from beyond the arc. Like with the Sixers, he shot 36% from three in 99, 31% in 2000. He did shoot 40% in 01 when we went to the finals.
No, in 02 he shot 40%.
Yeah.
The 2000-2001 team, when he won Sixth Man of the Year, he shot 31% from three.
Oh yeah, you're right. I was looking at the grid wrong. Yeah,
There was a 5-year stretch where he shot 37%. That's just
Right.
that's not going to get it done.
It's not going to get it done. No, not at that. Not
If
not for the kind of role he had.
if you would have bashed George Niang, there's no way Aaron McKee is making a roster.
He won Sixth Man of the Year. He averaged 11, 4, and 5.
How bad were benches in the NBA that
He
year?
won Sixth Man of the Year.
Yeah.
All right, so
so
no one McKee.
Okay, I
You
agree.
said yes.
I said he'd be
You
on a
said-
roster. He's not a guy that. is
So you
gonna
would say he
contribute.
wouldn't be as good now as he was then?
I said he wouldn't contribute. Like he wouldn't be in a rotation. I said he might be on the end of a roster.
I don't even have him on a roster.
I don't either.
He's on the Shanghai Sharks.
Hey, that's my guy. He's a Temple guy, but I couldn't.
That's all of our guys. I mean, we all love him.
Yeah. Next guy is we mentioned before in the pod, Vlade Divac. What do you about Vlade Divac in today's NBA?
So
So
have the Basketball Reference.
I was going to start this segment, but you jumped right into Aaron McKee. I was going to start by saying if you have any white centers, my blanket answer is no.
White centers? No, because I actually a little spoiler into the rest of this. I was considering Zydrunas Ilgauskas, but he did not make the cut. But he was the only one that I was considering. The other ones I definitively do not think would have made it now.
Yeah, Vlade could be a backup center in today's.
I think he could have too.
I'm looking at prime Vlade. He was 16, 10, and 4.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was a really, really good passer. And again, you have to part of this is difficult in the fact that looking at his 3-point shot at 16%. But I feel like if Vlade played in today's game, he would have the ability to develop that shot. Like I think he's not Shaq, where Shaq could never shoot a 3. I feel like Vlade would have it in him to develop that 3-point shot. So I'm going to give him the benefit of that. Still probably too slow to be a starting contributing player, but I think he could be a backup center in the NBA. If Mason Plumlee can do it, Vlade Divac.
I was just going to say,
Cody Zeller.
there's plenty of guys, and he was crafty, Divac.
Right.
He was
could really
crafty,
pass.
smart, high basketball IQ. He walked so Ivica Zubac could run. There's no Ivica Zubac
Yeah, that's
without
disrespectful to Vlade, I think.
So I say yes. I think he could absolutely be on a team and probably get some spot starts, like if the starting center is out for a week or two.
Especially given the size. Everybody wants size.
Yeah,
You know who I think he would be? I think he would be, and I know he's not in the league this year or probably ever again because of what he's been saying recently, but I think he's like a little Enes Kanter.
Oh.
What do you think?
Nah, because Vlade was a passer. Kanter wasn't a.
Well, no, Kanter, yeah, but I said this is the frame
Yeah,
and
he just
like
looks
his
a little bit like
offensive skill set.
Eastern European.
Eastern European, right?
Yeah.
His rebounds were like he had 2 years where he averaged over with double digits in rebounds, but the rest of them were kind of for a center, starting center at that, they were okay.
Yeah,
I think I'd have him still as a reserve.
Yeah, that's what I said.
He
Backup.
wouldn't be as good though. To ultimately answer the question of the exercise, he wouldn't be as good now as he was then.
Yeah, he would
Right.
get dusted in the pick and roll.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't know if he'd be able to guard bigs on the perimeter.
Well, it's like people always say like about Boban, like if he played back in the 90s, he'd be like absolutely unstoppable.
Right.
Yeah. Or Jaleel Okafor.
Yeah.
Jowl. All right.
All right.
who you got
So The third guy is one of the guys that was one of my favorite players for like a hot minute back when I first started watching basketball, and that is Kevin Johnson from the Phoenix
Oh,
Suns.
for some reason, I was thinking about him today. I thought you might have thrown him out there. I don't know why.
Yeah, Kevin Johnson was a three-time All-Star actually. Had a couple seasons where he averaged over 20 a game in yesteryear's NBA. And he started in the 80s, 87, 88 was his first season. And then he finished off in 99, 2000 season with the Suns back with Phoenix.
Why
He
would
was-
why
he
would
was-
we think Kevin Johnson wouldn't be able to play in today's NBA?
He's one of those guys out of curiosity to see, like, because of the speed difference now, the size difference, excuse me, the size difference now. I mean, he was, I mean, nowadays a point guard, 6'1" point guard's undersized.
The
Yeah,
two
no,
things,
I mean it is,
the
but
two
like I'm
things going
looking
against him. He was small,
right.
really small, really thin, and he couldn't shoot.
But I'm looking right now in 93, 94. He averaged 27 and 10 in the playoffs. In 94, 95, he was 25 and 9 in the playoffs. Like anybody averaging those numbers is going to be able to translate their game to the NBA. Yeah, he would still be a
He
was
was.
a
I don't
star in
think
the NBA.
I think he'd be a piece. I don't think he'd be a star like he was. Or
I,
not a star,
probably
but
not an
starter.
all-star, but he's a starter.
You think he's a starter still?
Yeah, I do. I don't know if he's
I don't
an
know.
all-star. He's not a three-time all-star, but he could start.
He'd have to learn how to shoot the three because he's basically like this. Not Isaiah of the '80s. He's like the Isaiah Thomas of this generation.
Right. I mean, that's the question for all these guys is like the three wasn't as important back then, so it wasn't prioritized. But would they have the ability to do it if they had to?
I mean, yeah. And if you look at his numbers, like he wasn't even attempting the three at all, and nobody was back then. But I mean, when he was to be shooting 20% or less, that's
Right.
pretty terrible.
Yeah, that is pretty terrible.
Yeah.
But
I mean,
again, look
yeah.
at those assist numbers like 12.2, 11.4, and that's in an NBA where
Listen,
scoring.
Yes,
is not-
West had similar numbers from three back at Houston Playground, but that wasn't stopping him from jacking up 3 or 4 games.
That's why I'm so critical of George Niang. I was Niang.
Guess
I wasn't making a shot. What am I in for?
guess wasn't taking 0.6 per game.
That's what I said. He was taking 3 or 4 minimum. Well, guess if you're Niang, I'm PJ Tucker. That sucks. Sucks for us.
I was always a shooter. I wasn't a maker.
It's wild that if you look at if you have his basketball reference up, every year he's around 20% from three, and then the one year he started to shoot them, he shot 44%.
Blew up.
Yeah,
I think he saw that the evolution was coming, and he worked on it.
Yeah, I guess.
So
yeah,
I still think, again, the inconsistency of shooting and his size. He may be in the NBA. I don't think he'd be a starter.
I don't think so either.
I have him as a starter, not an
I don't
all-star.
even know how he fits in off the bench, but I
Yeah.
guess he'd make a team.
Yeah, so let's move on to the next guy.
So now in the next tier, I had the stars. So these guys were legit stars. Kevin Johnson was up there, but these are legit stars of the 90s. And I'm going to start with Grandmama Larry Johnson.
That's such a good one. I
Do you
wish
think
we would
Larry
have like.
Johnson would be good now.
I wish I would have known more about these guys. Like we watched Larry Johnson play, but we didn't know enough about the game to.
Off the top of my head, he was an undersized, big body, and that worries me.
He was
For
a
his-
six. He was a 6'7" small/power forward. It says on Basketball Reference.
I have no idea who he defends in today's NBA. Who do you defend as a big monster, bulky beef, and you're only 6'7"?
Well, that's a
Yeah,
good question.
I don't know if he fits.
I don't
was
think he makes. I don't think he makes it. I just don't understand. Like he's Zion without the athleticism.
I was going to say that's what Zion is 6'7".
Whoa! He had athleticism.
Grandmama could bang, bro.
Yeah.
Compared to today is what I'm saying. Compared to today,
I mean, he was a former #1 overall pick.
I mean, listen. At the end of the day, like with these level of talent of player that we're talking about, they'd all find a way onto a roster. To say these guys wouldn't make a roster at this point is the question is how much impact would they have in today's game?
Wait.
I don't know. I don't think he'd have a huge impact in today's game.
are we talking about when they were playing, or like today, like at the age of 53?
Right now at 15
Wait
years
a
old.
minute. Wait a minute.
No, just
I've seen Grandmama with the gray hair.
Yo, but Larry was a star though. He had the commercials, he had sneaks, like he was
He had the gimmick.
Was he a
out there.
star because of his skill, or was he a star because the media hype machine got behind him and threw Grandma Ma at him?
Yeah.
He was part of that Charlotte Hornets team that, for whatever reason, was a dope squad to follow in the 90s.
Muggsy Bogues.
Yeah, the colors, those like teal, blue, purple, like they were just people dug those dudes back then.
And to be fair, again, looking at his stat line now, I mean, he's undersized at 6'7", but he hurt his back before he went to New York. He could rebound.
Yeah,
He's a really good
I'm
rebounder.
selling him way short. He would make a team. I just still don't know who he defends is the problem. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, he's 6'7" and he can't shoot. So
yeah, I mean, he
That
also, yeah, I mean, his total rebound 11 in his rookie year, he averaged 11 rebounds.
He probably could come in off the bench and play bully ball for a team. Like wear some guys down.
He shot the three a little bit too for his size. Now, granted, it was only like I think his max 3-point attempts for a season was on average was 2.6 3-point attempts a game at 94, 95 when he was an all-star. So that obviously nowadays it's way, guys are shooting way more than that. So I don't know if he'd be able to withstand 39%.
It's crazy like the one thing I'm noticing looking at these stat lines is the 3-point percentages of these guys goes up and down dramatically compared to the guys. Like nowadays, if you're a 38% shooter, you fall around that 38% almost every year. He's 38, 36, 32, 23, 36, 33. Like he just bounces around.
Yeah. And also with those 90s guys, you look at their attempts and it like you might find a guy that's like, well, he shot 40%, but then he might have only attempted 1.9 threes again. Like it was a different era. So
that was a lot.
That year in 94, 95, when he was putting up 2+ threes a game, Del Curry was on that team also.
Mm-hmm.
He was firing off at a 43% clip from 3-point, and he was only taking 5 a game.
Yeah, so
that was a lot.
That's why everybody loved the Hornets. That exciting brand of basketball, putting up probably 10 threes a game down there in Charlotte.
Back then, yeah,
running the show.
So in 2K, all I remember is last year's 2K NBA 2K22. I played a game with the 94 Charlotte Hornets. They're like one of the legend teams for whatever reason. And Larry Johnson was awful. He couldn't make anything. All you had to score on a drive or in the paint. Other than that, he would make nothing. I put up like 35 with Del Curry and I think Bobby Phills.
Rest in peace.
Yeah. So anyway, moving on. This guy coming up was my favorite player. You talked about his team previously on this show.
Can I guess? Hersey Hawkins?
No, that was my guy too, though. But on the same team. So right church, wrong pew. Sean Kemp.
The Ray Man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you remember when Sean Kemp left the league in whatever year that was, and he was on the Magic, he's 6'10", could not dunk in the preseason.
Yeah, but that's not the Sean Kemp we're talking about.
No, I know, but I'm just saying that's something. I mean, 6'10", you can't dunk. Something's wrong with you.
Yeah, no, Sean Kemp would still be able to play in this league, and he'd be a borderline all-star.
Yeah, he'd be a starter, no doubt. He was so athletic, man. He was so good.
And we
talk about it. We talk about the Sixers and Joel Embiid not being like good rebounders. He was a vicious rebounder, man. He used to rip boards down.
Yeah,
boards.
Dude,
he averaged a double-double, what, 7 years straight?
He has small ball 5 written all over him. Like he might be a 5 in today's NBA.
Yeah, 6 years straight. He had from 91 till 97. He averaged a double-double.
And he's
a high double-double at that.
Al, I'm going to beat you to the punch. Big stocks guy.
Oh, yeah?
Steals and blocks, yeah. 1.5, 1.9, 1.8, 2.1. Yeah, dude, that's the only difference. Sean Kemp's a 5 now instead of a 4.
And guess what? He shot at the foul line pretty nice. Like, he was a 70-something like that. Today's NBA for a big, if you can shoot over 70, 75, like that's really good for like he shot 75%, 91, 92. 71%, 74, 75, pretty consistent. 75, 73, 79.
Yeah, if you're listening to this pod and you are under the age of 30 and you didn't really get to see Sean Kemp, you got to go YouTube some Sean Kemp highlights because that man was an absolute monster.
Yeah,
the best.
We're all on the same page. Sean Kemp's a player.
The Gary Payton Sean Kemp tandem was just fantastic.
The best is when he dunked on dude and pointed to him when he fell down. I love that. That's like my favorite clip in the NBA's history. I love that clip. He's like, "You got burnt."
Dude, that's second only to Shaq dunking on Chris Dudley.
Oh, yeah.
And then Chris Dudley throwing the ball
Throw the
out.
ball at him. Yeah. Screw you, man.
All right, who's next?
All right. Next, we got former Sixer Dikembe Mutombo. I mean, Deke would still be in the NBA and be
Yeah, definitely.
Gut instinct says yes automatically.
Really? See,
Yeah, I mean, for rim protection for sure. People crave rim protection.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you gotta, like I said, you gotta be versatile now as a big in the league. You gotta be able to move around and guard. You can't just guard under the basket anymore. If he played a team that had like, imagine playing Brook Lopez.
Right. Well, he would have trouble in that matchup. Yeah,
But he wouldn't be playing 30, 35 plus minutes a game. He'd be playing like 15 to 22.
Well, so that's the question. So you would say he would not be who we know him as if he played today.
Right. I'm trying to look up like a comp.
He couldn't be because guys wouldn't just be running into him in the lane like they did in the 90s where he was
like imagine him against Joel. Like Joel would cook him.
Dude.
Yeah.
He would be like, I hate using this comparison. He would be like a poor man's Rudy Gobert.
Yeah.
I think he's better than Gobert.
Well, he doesn't have he doesn't have the feet that Gobert does. Not that Gobert has great feet, but Mutombo had like cement in his shoes.
He had that signature hook shot though.
No, that shot wouldn't play.
No. I just think it's funny that he had it.
Yeah, and he had stone hands. But dude, that dude could rebound and he could block shots. Yeah. And that matters still in today's game.
He's another guy that's coming in off the bench, getting you some. He's using his fouls, making things tough for the opposition.
Imagine Deke learning how to spot up and hit a three like how Bamba learned how to do that. Imagine like Deke just go out to the spot from the top of the key.
Underrated foul shooter, I feel like.
He was for us. I don't know. I wouldn't say that for his career.
Yeah, 68 for his career.
It was like average.
For the Sixers, he was
75%.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was average overall for his career, though, for his position. But
I actually did. Al, I disagree. I think he would be a starter still in today's NBA. I just think he's like a 22 minute a game guy. And I think in the playoffs you could play him off the floor.
He's too slow, bro. I don't think so.
Quiet journeyman, 6 teams in the NBA.
Yeah.
I don't think he's ever attempted a three.
Yeah, it just
he has 0.0 down the list for his attempts.
I always look at totals.
No, he's attempted 2.
He's 0 for 2.
He attempted 2.
Yeah, he's 0 for 2.
They're probably heaves.
Yeah, definitely.
All right. So I'm saying, Al, me and you are on the same page, I think. And then Seltzer thinks he could start still. All right. So then we got the legend. So I want to spend a little bit of legit time because all 5 of these guys I have I'm really intrigued by what you would think about them. So we can go quicker on our responses, but I want to try to get them all in.
All right.
First is John Stockton. John Stockton's white ass. I don't know if he'd be able to be athletic. He's definitely not tall enough. I feel like he'd be. See, but then I'm looking at a guy like TJ McConnell, and he's still in the NBA.
Yeah, I was just gonna say he would be like a crafty TJ McConnell type. That
you guys are not.
I watched that final.
He leads the NBA in assists and steals.
He was the corniest dude. He was so corny.
But Seltzer, he doesn't do that in today's NBA. How can he do that at 6'1", $170?
Listen,
with no elite like speed or
I don't know. How did he do it he averaged 15 assists a game almost.
Imagine in both their primes, because I think one of these guys already is past his prime. But imagine like 2018 Ben Simmons guarding John Stockton. What would John Stockton do to Ben Simmons?
I'm trying to look up like the kind of guy that Stockton was playing at that time. Like it couldn't have been good.
Dude, I mean, John Stockton, John Stockton from 3, from 94 through 98, 45%, 42%, 42%, 43%.
He shot 2 a game.
Okay, but that was the game. But if he could stretch that out now.
Real talk. I don't even know who. There's only a handful of snipers that played in the 90s. A lot of these guys' numbers from 3 are inflated because they didn't shoot a lot of them.
I understand that, but that's not to say that they couldn't do more in today's NBA game if they had to.
But I don't think if you had to have Stockton do more, he could do more. Based on it's out of his control. He's still a 6-foot guy that dribbled like he was in Hoosiers.
John
Like who's he getting around?
John Stockton's still a starter in today's
A
NBA.
starter still?
Yeah. Like you don't think John Stockton
All right.
No way.
John Stockton could run a pick and roll all day as much as pick and roll offenses in the NBA today?
Listen, there's some bona fide guys that played ball in the late 80s, early 90s, right? But
Yeah.
some of these point guards that he played against, Sherman Douglas,
Thank you.
Vern Fleming, Sleepy Floyd,
You're just pulling names.
who? Richardson,
Yeah,
Fat
put some-
Lever, Fat
Yeah.
Lever. How do you say that?
You just don't like
Well,
you don't like
fat.
Stockton
He was
because
on
he's
the
an
Nuggets, wasn't he?
anti-vaxxer, dude.
Yeah, the bull fat. Bobby Sura, the Bobby Suras of the world, like I don't know, man. I can't see him being on a team,
Just
let
part
alone
of this
a starter.
exercise, Seltzers, that it's the athletes of today. Like, how the hell could he do what he did today?
Again, TJ McConnell's in the NBA and doing fine. He ain't
I
no
think
athlete.
TJ's more skilled than John Stockton.
Okay.
You're out of your mind if you think TJ McConnell's more skilled than John Stockton.
He's naturally in an evolved time period.
He has the most assists in the history of
So
basketball.
what does that mean with athleticism? He could find open guys. That's great. He
Oh
had
my
vision,
God.
but that doesn't mean he's athletic.
Oh my God. I can't have this conversation with you.
I got
I don't
I
think
got
he's in the-
Stockton as a bench player, but there's no way he is what he was today. There's no
No,
Okay.
I don't think he played.
John Stockton made 1, 2, 3, 4, like 9, 10 All-Star games. I'm not saying he's an All-Star.
Listen,
I'm
let's
not
be
saying
honest.
he's an All-Star. but
There's
he's a
only going to
starting point
be
guard.
there's only going to be a handful of guys that Chris could mention that we would say,
Monte Morris is a starting point guard in this NBA. He blows.
He's better athletically than Stockton is.
Okay, he's a better athlete. He's not a better basketball player.
Yeah, but athleticism is
Jalen
what
McDaniel's a better
sport.
athlete than X, Y, and Z, but he don't start over any of those guys.
Nah, as a guard, man, you got to be athletic to even step on the floor, and you got to be big. He's only 6 foot.
Yo,
He was a
he's
6
star.
foot non-athletic point guard.
yeah,
Chris
there's-
Paul.
Just don't see it. I just don't see it.
All right,
Did
next
Chris
guy.
Paul jump? Chris
Huh?
Paul an athlete? Answer.
Yeah, he
Chris
can
Paul,
dunk.
you
Remember
said?
he dunked a few years ago?
No, dude, Chris Paul's. I think Chris Paul's a better shooter than John Stockton. I think that again, I don't know how good Stockton really was as a shooter when he only shot the ball 2 freaking times a game from
Well,
three.
that's part of the debate. I think it could translate in today's game.
Well, I guess, as Kanye said, I guess we'll never know. Next guy, Dennis Rodman.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. 100%.
100%.
So you don't think his lack of offense would have hindered him from getting on the court for certain teams or most teams?
No, because Ben Simmons' lack of offense didn't hinder him from getting on the court all these years.
Fair enough.
I will the biggest obstacle with Dennis Rodman playing in today's NBA is social media.
Oh my God. Yeah. How many?
Good call.
And like those trips to Vegas that he took when people would be
So-
like, yo, why are the Bulls playing the Pacers and Rodman's in Vegas? You know?
So I was watching the A&E Legend WWE Legends thing the other day, and he had the NWO on there. And the night when he left the Bulls to go on that whole Vegas binge and ended up somehow on Monday Nitro, and Hulk Hogan said that Phil Jackson called him and was like, "Hey, have you seen Dennis?" Like legit, like he was like it's like his kid in the street somewhere, and he was like, "Yeah, he's going to be on the show." He's like, "Can you tell Dennis he needs to get back to work? We're trying to win a title here." And he's like, "That sounds like a Dennis problem. I don't know what to tell you," because like that was ratings for them for wrestling. They didn't care.
Go ahead.
Nowadays, if he had social media, Seltzer, to your point, like imagine that happening now in this generation with social media being what it is. An NBA guy just leaving in the middle of a playoffs or a final series and just going rogue like that.
That's why I think again, I don't want to talk LeBron Jordan because we could go all night, but I don't know if Jordan would be able to play in this era. Like imagine the NBA finals if we saw LeBron at the poker table at 4 a.m. in Atlantic City when they had a finals game the next day, how much he would get for that.
Yeah. I mean, I think on the court, Jordan would have been able to play, but there's stuff off the court that he
That's
would've-
what I mean. I think that would have been really tough for him.
Yeah.
But,
But hold on, real quick.
Best
I think the
weekend of all
Rodman, the good Rodman comp, although it's not completely the same, is like a Draymond Green.
Yeah, but best rebounder of all time, though.
Yeah,
And
but
underrated,
Draymond's a better
just shut down defensive player.
who? Rodman or Draymond?
Both, but Rodman's more known for his rebounding, but his defense was elite too.
Yeah,
I will say he was a great defender. His rebounds were
I know.
insane. Like his like insane.
And-
So yeah, I think he'd be in the NBA still, but he'd have to be on a team like he was, like a special team. He couldn't be on just any team.
Yeah, he could get himself in trouble.
Similar to Draymond.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. How about Chuck?
Yeah, dude.
Charles Barkley. Do you think he'd be able to be successful and a star like he was in his day if he played now?
Yes.
for the same reasons that we just said for Dennis Rodman. Yeah, absolutely, because he was way more of an offensive force and
So
an elite rebounder.
Chuck was the closest that we could say would come to Zion, I think.
Yeah,
I
100%.
think Zion would love to have a career like Chuck.
Yeah.
That's a great point. And
And actually, furthermore, the real reason I wanted to bring Chuck up is because on Basketball Reference, his nicknames, he has a plethora of nicknames, including, aside from Sir Charles and the Round Mountain of Rebound, some generic, the Chuckster, the Chuck Wagon, the Prince of Pizza, the Incredible Bulk, the Leaning Tower, the Leaning Tower of Pizza, Bread Truck, Boy Gorge. Boy Gorge.
No one's ever called him.
Love Boat, Food World, the Crisco Kid, Wide Load from Leeds, Ton of Fun, and Good Time Blimp.
that's a wide variety of nicknames.
Dude, Boy Gorge is hilarious. That's hilarious. Yeah, I think because of Zion, if Zion wasn't in the NBA, I would legit question it, but because of what we see with Zion still being able to be decent in this league today, I think Chuck would also be able to be decent.
I think Zion,
And he is more what's the word I'm looking for? He was way more health. I mean, he barely missed games.
durable.
Yeah.
Like he was really durable.
And here's the thing, like we were talking about how the three translates, and obviously Chuck didn't shoot the three, but just from the eye test, I feel like he's a dude that could have put that in his game if he needed to. Like I think he could have, even though his percentages weren't great, he probably didn't work on it a ton. He had enough stroke that he could step outside and bang threes if he had to in today's NBA.
He would have been like a 1 for 3, 2 for 4 kind of guy.
He would
the-
hit 34, 35%.
Yeah, the kids of this generation kind of all they know him is the fat dude that talks on TV, but like he was a baller, man. He was really good.
He would
Really
still be an all NBA player if he played today's NBA.
I don't disagree with that. How about I think I know what you're gonna say. How about Karl Malone?
Yeah, no. I mean,
Yeah,
all
without
these guys,
Yeah.
Karl
Without
Malone's
looking anything up. Yeah.
fifth all time in scoring. Like
Just because I'm just thinking as far as because of the fact that he was a 4, but now he wasn't. I don't think I would say he was athletic,
no,
but he also was big for his time. Like he still has good size, 6'9", 6'10". Like he still has good size. He could shoot.
yeah. And again, another guy I could visualize stepping out to the corner three. He
And
didn't
very,
do it, but I
very
could see
smart
it.
dude.
And dude, if you look at his Basketball Reference, the durability is insane.
That's what I'm looking at now. Yeah, he really never missed games.
And even like 98, 99, that was a lockout season. I think that was only a 50-game season.
And he played the whole year.
Yeah.
In fact, I don't know if he ever missed a game.
Yeah, there's a couple 81.
Oh no, he missed 5 in his rookie year.
Yeah, there's a few
that
here.
was it.
There's like 1 or 2 a season. That's insane.
Yeah, he was a beast. And I mean, look, you're looking at 29 point. Yeah, the guy, he translates.
Yeah, I agree. I think he would be still a legit dude. And finally, the guy who people have talked about in a lot of barbershops all over the country, this same conversation with this player, and that would be Shaq.
Yeah. Yeah.
Shaq would have to. I'm going to take a hot take here. I don't know how good Shaq would be in today's NBA.
I agree. He wouldn't be the same. I agree with you.
I feel like Shaq had the same issues that Mutombo would have, but he wasn't as good with like Deke would have his defense as his calling card. Shaq would have his power, but he would get called for fouls all the time. He'd be like how Dwight Howard was at the end of his NBA career, where every single thing he did in the post was a foul.
Right.
He couldn't be able to swing his elbows and create space.
But I feel like if Shaq today would have stayed more of the slender Shaq that we saw in Orlando than when he kind of beefed up and became like the big man in LA and in Miami. I think he would have stayed a little more slender, a little more lean and athletic.
Can I
Also,
say,
the
still
free
had
throw
power.
situation.
right.
That's a huge deal. Like he would have been a liability on the court deep in games with that. I mean,
Can I-
he was back then. He definitely would be now when they call more fouls.
You know what drives me nuts about Shaq? And we've talked about NBA on TNT and how entertaining that is, but how uninformed a lot of that stuff is. When Shaq gets on Joel for not dominating games, early in the season and getting his butt in the post instead of shooting threes, like Shaq didn't start every season 30 pounds overweight. And missed a ton of games when he had like turf toe injuries and refused to play. Like Shaq was always there when it mattered. But let's not act like Shaq was ready to play every game in November and December that he's criticizing these other players for.
And
Like,
the one thing I don't like about him is I'm a Shaq guy, but I don't like when he disrespects the guys that are playing now. When he just says like, "Well, if you don't win, I don't know who you are. If you're not on TNT, I don't really care to look at you." Like that's not really cool either. Because there's a lot of guys on bad teams that are still putting in the work, still playing their ass off, still trying to have a career, make ends meet in the league, and stay in the league. And they deserve respect too, especially from a guy that's been there and done it. Like it's one thing for a fan to say that, but a guy who's been in the trenches on the court at that level, I think should have more respect for peers.
And I'm picturing him in today's NBA, like guarding pick and roll. Like he'd be a drop coverage guy for sure, and he would just stand there.
Yeah, I
He
think he'd
wouldn't
be a
do
little
much.
bit more of a liability defensively. He'd still be able to board. He'd
Right.
still be like if you were stupid enough to try to have him in the paint, you'd get dealt with still, offensively or defensively. But guys like Joel, guys like the kids that are going to come up now, the Chets of the world, the Wembanyamas of the world, the guys who can stretch fives all over the league, he would get exploited on the perimeter big time. He would not be able to be, even if he was slender, like he was back when he was in his beginning of his career, I don't think he'd be able to guard those guys.
He would be, again, I think it's like, he's a starter. He's a very good starter, but he's somebody you could like play off a floor, I think, in a playoff game. And I hate to use, I don't want to say like Yusuf Nurkic because he's better than Yusuf Nurkic, but like similar, he's better than Nurkic, but similar type of player, I think, in that he's a post scorer, can pass, but if you go
Limited.
small, he's going to kind of be lost out there a little bit.
He's limited.
Yeah.
I don't know who would defend him though in the paint. I know it's not the same. It's not the way basketball's played anymore. But
You
They
have to
wouldn't let
bring,
him get there.
you had to bring doubles, right? It'd be the same thing they do to Joel. Like,
Yeah.
who can
Yeah,
guard
they wouldn't
Joel
let him get
in those?
there.
Just you can't let him get there and get the ball. All
I
right.
had if we have 2 more seconds, I got 4 guys, a yes or no, quick 1-word answers if you thought that they would be still decent in the league. Jamal Mashburn,
yes,
Yeah.
Jeff Hornacek,
yes,
Bench guard.
Big Dog Glenn Robinson.
yes.
No.
What'd you say, Al?
I said yes.
Why do you say no, Seltzer, so
'Cause
fast?
I think he was a volume scorer. I don't have his numbers in front of me, but he was a turnstile defensively.
He was awful defensively. I will say that. You're
He
right.
would get smoked in today's
He
NBA.
wasn't the fastest guy either.
He's George
Um,
Niang in today's NBA.
No, I agree, Seltzer. He wouldn't be as good, but I think he'd still be in the.
I'm not saying. Yeah. I'm sorry. I'm not saying he wouldn't be in the league. I'm saying he wouldn't nearly have the impact he did in his career, and he's probably a bench player.
Yeah. And then finally, Chris Mullin.
I want to say yes.
Yeah, me too.
I admittedly though don't like remember much about his game.
Yeah, he's a little
I
too.
Like I remember liking Run TMC in Golden State, and like I don't know, Chris Mullin looked like my buddy Mick, so like that was cool. But like I don't really remember much.
Yeah,
about
he could shoot it.
He could shoot
he
it.
stroked it, but that's all I remember.
Real quick snapshot of Chris Mullin. He had and he was a 5-time All-Star, played until 2001. And he has 5 years under his belt, averaging 25 plus points a game.
Yeah, he could play.
He's no incredible bulk, but he could probably play in today's
Or,
NBA.
or Boy Gorge,
Prince of
the,
Boots.
the Crisco kid. Yeah, we gotta have an all nickname.
I want to do that at some point, either a draft or a list of the best nicknames of all time. But I think we spoiled it. We just read all of them.
Yeah, Boy Gorge is a #1 seed, definitely.
All right, so Chris, you did a really good job with that. That was
Yeah.
better than I thought it was.
Now you got to put those teams together on NBA 2K and play them against some of the guys from today and see what happens.
Well, we know Larry Johnson ain't gonna get on my team because I already tried that and he couldn't get a bucket at all.
But end of February, boys, we're heading into March. We're gonna have spring training pickup. We'll have some Phillies previews, some MLB preview. We have March Madness.
Yeah.
Sixers running through this tough schedule. And when's the NFL free agency? That's beginning of April.
March 15th.
March 15th. So we got a lot of stuff coming around the corner. So
We're rolling. March is
Yeah.
the best time of the year. It gets warm, daylight savings. It's lighter later. You get, like you said,
That's
March
more like
Madness. It
April,
rolls,
wouldn't it?
rolls right into the Masters, rolls right into the Kentucky Derby.
we got a lot of stuff coming up,
Great
boys. A lot of stuff. But until then, we will see y'all next week. So we're gonna drop that beat.